Ashley Guillard.
I have a gift.
A self-described tarot reader and psychic investigator who exploded online after posting over 100 TikTok videos accusing Idaho University history professor Rebecca Scofield of orchestrating the Idaho 4 tragedy.
I'm literally the only one that can help with this right now.
With no factual basis for Ashley's claims, her videos still racked up millions of views and over 100,000 followers, turning a devastating moment into viral content. And what was Ashley's evidence for these wild claims? Well, of course, she said it all came from spiritual investigation using tarot and what she calls claircognizant insight. No documents, no witnesses, no police information, just vibes. And this isn't the only case that Ashley inserted herself into. This was just the one where Ashley pushed things too far, and now is facing the consequences of her actions. Some of you might be asking, who are the Idaho 4? Who's Ashley? And why did things get so out of control? Well, stick around as we work through all the details and find the answers to all of your questions about this intriguing case of a psychic detective finally facing consequences. Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Floriel. Welcome to the channel or welcome back to the channel. Either way, it is good to have you here. Now today's video is a doozy. Today we're going to be exploring Ashley Guillard as a case study in the dangers of psychic detectives and the trend of turning real-life tragedies into entertainment. In today's day and age, we're all seeing more and more problems with true crime being turned into entertainment. From misinformation to just straight up lies, this stuff re-traumatizes surviving victims, families, and friends. And it often ends up romanticizing the person who actually committed the crime. And I'm not talking about just psychics here. True crime is content now, and that's sort of the problem. Ghost hunters claim that they solved cold cases with debunked gadgets, radios or apps on their phone telling them a new piece of evidence. It's not though, it's just an app. And true crime creators as well are chasing more and more shocking and vile stories because gore equals clicks, and this is the path that a lot of them have taken now. Even high-budget shows like Netflix's Monster are testing the limits of what's morally acceptable. The recent Ed Gein season was a perfect example of going too far for entertainment's sake. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look into it a lot. They really did not do the victims justice in that case. But using real-life cases for content, it isn't new, but the disrespect and the complete lack of empathy towards the victims and surviving family, that is what's escalating here. And psychics, well, yes, they've always been a problem in this space. They've always tried to involve themselves in true crime, missing persons, things like that. For a short while, though, after Sylvia Browne was exposed for the harm that she caused, a lot of psychics did back off from active and cold cases. We saw people like John Edward refuse to go even touch any of that. Teresa Caputo also sidestepped it all. And Tyler Henry would kind of like walk the line very carefully. But this new generation of what I like to call sort of TikTok brain rot people and YouTube psychics and tarot readers, they don't seem to really understand this or care about the risks. They just want to insert their grift into real cases with real victims and real families who have to watch this nonsense play out online over and over again. Honestly, this just has to stop. So my video here is just the start. Over the next year, I do want to cover more things like this. I want to talk about different tragedies, real life events being used by psychics, YouTubers, ghost hunters, even platforms like Netflix. This is something I do want to kind of tackle. So expect more videos on the topic. Please leave feedback and everything below too on what you think about these, because I do want to make more and I want to kind of refine it as we go. Okay, so like I said, this is going to be a long video. We're going to be covering a lot of different cases, but I hope that this video, and I kind of want to do a case study on psychics that do this during this whole thing. I hope that it helps teach different people more about the dangers of messing with the facts of a true crime case. Whether it's a psychic, a ghost hunter, whatever, true crime YouTuber, or a network like Netflix. This causes damage. And also, Sidebar. I have to say this in all my psychic videos because I get comments when I don't say this. If you're new here, I will link my video on growing up psychic as well as my entire Psychic Exposed playlist. I have a lot of experience in this industry as I was raised in it and I've been in it my whole life. So now I expose all this stuff and I teach others details about this field. Okay, so that was just a little side tangent because it does come up in comments when I don't bring it up. So let's get back to Ashley. Just like how she picked apart and exploited the lives of others, we're going to dissect her life, her supposed abilities, and her possible motives for why she went this far. Now, with all my videos, I go through someone's story chronologically. So we're going to begin with Ashley's origin story, and we're going to kind of build it out from there. As always with all my videos, do not send any hate to any of the people that I talk about in this video. Be kind, even if they haven't been. Be the bigger person. Keep things positive in the community. Ashley's origins. We can assume that we're kind of starting in the 1980s. With Ashley, there's a lot of stuff that we just don't have answers on. I haven't found any verified sources giving like an exact date or year of birth, but we do know that she presents herself as millennial, and based on her timeline and the age of her son and everything, it's reasonable to assume that she was likely born in the 1980s. Ashley published her books as Ashley Guillard, but she says that she was born Ashley Taylor. She's married, so likely Guillard is her married name. I'm just going to interrupt really quick and say I do believe that she is divorced, and I will have more to say about this shortly here. And I know people pronounce it differently on the different news articles and YouTubers and everything, but I went back and watched all her old stuff, and she pronounces it Guillard, so that is how I'm going to pronounce it. So don't come at me in the comments about that. All right, I will try to avoid using most people's names in this story, so I won't be naming her son, her husband, and her friends. They didn't make the choice to be caught up in the mess that Ashley created, so I don't see the point in calling out family and friends in these situations. The limited biographical information about her early life might also be partly because she's ex-military and didn't really have a big online footprint until after her service. May have been on purpose, or maybe something was wiped beforehand, we don't know. And after she got into the whole entrepreneur, author, coach, psychic online persona, that is sort of when we see more about her online. But to start, we have her author bio on Amazon, and this gives us the most details, so I'm just going to kind of quote it. Ashley Guillard, a Chicago native born on the South Side. Ashley is an entrepreneur of a digital publishing company, which is called Live in Fantasyland, LLC. I do find that name very fitting. And she's the author of numerous books. She's also a combat veteran, member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and also a mother. As a purpose-driven millennial, Ashley is widely known for her passion for encouraging people to pursue excellence and to become the person God has called them to be. End quote. Throughout this video, I will be saying the term make a note or here's a note for us, because in this video, I do want to aim to explore the motives behind someone like Ashley and to add to the larger discussion on psychics and psychic detectives as a whole. The question of whether a psychic truly believes in themselves or if they are a grifter from day one, that is often the question that I try to resolve for each psychic that I review. So it's also something that you might hear me mention in a lot of videos too. And sometimes I can't be 100% sure and I kind of go back and forth on it, but I like to hear your opinions too when that happens, and definitely leave them below and let me know. So all of that said, we're going to kind of make our notes for when we discuss our motive here. So let's make our first note with this. Sometimes people tell us the truth to our faces and we don't realize it, like hiding in plain sight. The name that she chose for her publishing company is Live in Fantasyland. That name alone aptly describes Ashley's story to a T, and I find it very interesting that she pretty much right away is telling us that she's living in her own fantasy land. And when you hear the stories that she spins up, it kind of tracks. So what I'm going to try to do in editing, if I don't forget anything, I'm going to try to put like a little note thing up on the screen and we'll keep track of it as we go. And I'll try to make like a list or something. But if I miss anything, please do let me know. All right. Ashley goes on to further describe her son as an up-and-coming entrepreneur and faith coach. Sorry, that was in quotes. Based on a TikTok where she talks about him, and from seeing him in some recent shorts as well, I think it's fair to say that he's well into his 20s at this point. That again lines up with her likely being born in the 80s, but she could have been early 90s too. We don't have a lot of detail about her husband, but Ashley has mentioned that he is away a lot, which has led people to assume that he's still in maybe some sort of military service, that maybe that's where they met. Ashley also has worked on books with some very accomplished women, and her being part of a sorority, she likely had a circle of friends at some point that were very accomplished and trusted women to lean on each other, because it's what you usually get in sororities. So this is the general gist of the family and friends circle that we're working with Ashley. Now let's break down her career timeline, starting with the military. So we're looking at around 2000s to mid-2000s. Ashley describes herself as a combat veteran who served on the front lines in Iraq as part of Team Lioness. Wikipedia describes Team Lioness, quote, female U.S. Marines attached to combat units in Iraq and Afghanistan. They were deployed to conduct searches of local women during raids and checkpoint operations, tasks that male soldiers could not perform due to cultural restrictions in conservative Islamic societies. Lioness members engaged with these women to gather critical intelligence, build rapport, and disseminate information roles that enhance the military's counterinsurgency efforts. So another note here, I wonder if she was doing intelligence gathering, as that does require a certain set of social skills and social engineering. And that could translate well into coaching and or the psychic field itself too. So Ashley was deployed in Iraq from 2004 to 2005. Her aunt suggested that she should write a book. Ashley didn't actually act on that idea until about 13 years later, but it's a detail that she repeats, so it seems important to her personal narrative of how she became an author. She would also go on to say that people told her that her writing and her speeches were so powerful that she has the ability to shape others around her, and she should build upon that. We don't know if this is a true story or not, of course. There's a clip of it that I've seen, and I'm going to try to find it for you where she kind of goes on this narrative so you can kind of hear it in her own voice. I went looking through everything. I could not find this clip, and then YouTube removed my watch history from her channel, so I can't remember if it was from one of hers or for someone else's video. If I find it at some point, I will just put it in the description below. We can assume that Ashley left military service not long after the deployment, because that's when the timeline starts to shift towards college and civilian life for her. On TikTok, she does say that she can't work a normal 9-to-5 job because of a disability stemming from service. She has mentioned PTSD in her content and books before, and there may be other disabilities as well that she hasn't disclosed publicly, and that's fine. Like, she doesn't have to disclose her disabilities to anybody. But I only mention this as she does frame herself as a disabled combat veteran whose life was significantly shaped by her time in Iraq. So she must have seen some stuff that really affected her. So Iraq, she left in 2005. And then what we're looking at now is her going into her post-secondary education, which I just am putting on the screen, the dates. So 2007, 2009, Chicago State, 2009, 2012, Columbus State, 2012, 2013 is Troy University. You can see her different degrees in education that she has here on the screen. Her autobiography says she holds an ABBA in Business Administration from Columbus State University in Georgia, and notes that she joined a chapter there, and that was the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And she has a master's in Human Resource Management from Troy University in Alabama. So that ties into both the Columbus State timeline and the way she presents herself as an educated, professional, sorority-connected millennial woman. Now, as I was digging through her books, I noticed that some of them had co-authors and editors listed as well. When I looked up these people, there seemed to be an overlap with military and human resource backgrounds, and there were a few accomplished women, which I would hazard a guess are probably sorority sisters. Two of the female authors co-authored a book with Ashley about overcoming negative behaviors. They note out that they had experienced trauma related to relationships with their mothers, as well as SA. Not necessarily saying the mother did it, but they just trauma from both things. So I'm not going to name all these authors. Like I said, there's no reason for us to drag in people that aren't involved in it. But I do think it's worth mentioning because it sounds like Ashley had a difficult past, which could affect how she sees the world.
A lot of people in the comments have been calling me schizophrenic. So I took liberty in looking it up because the people calling me schizophrenic in the comments can't even spell it, I guarantee. So anyway, it says delusions, hallucinations, and so I'm reading some of this stuff. Now, some of this stuff is absolutely ridiculous and that does not apply to me, but I'm reading some of this stuff, and this is exactly why I do not trust the medical industry, nor do I trust mental health professionals. They have literally been programmed by their education in their schools to treat right brain dominant people who are gifted, like they are crazy.
So before the psychic era, Ashley first tried her hand as an online coach. The timeline here is a little bit all over the place because it kind of overlaps with the time where she's in school too, but she starts up this entrepreneur thing. She calls herself a serial entrepreneur and she starts this thing saying she's a dream coach, and it's DR3AM, and she's also a faith coach. And this is where her messaging really shifts into business and life coaching territory. She really leans into the idea of being purpose-driven, spiritually guided, and here to help others achieve success and find their calling. Ashley really wanted to help people become, and I quote, the person God has called them to be, echoing the language from her other books, which obviously go hand in hand with the coaching service. Kind of like the book that she wrote is sort of like the textbook or the hand guide that goes with the coaching program that she has designed. At least that's how the branding comes across.
Hi friends, I'm Ashley Guillard, author of the Business Strategy Journal, a step-by-step guide to a successful business plan and strategy.
But around this time is when coaching really went off the deep end and became this scammy beast, similar to an MLM grift. Coaching programs promise to show people how to make tons of money online. Essentially, they all have turned into get-rich-quick schemes. And even where we are now today, it's like coaches train their clients to become coaches, then encourage them to open a business where they sell courses on coaching. It's like a never-ending cycle where there's an imaginary market for this service. All they do is sell programs to future coaches who sell programs to future coaches. There really is no continual client base for this. And that's why most people fail out, but ones who are good at grifting are able to kind of make it work really well for them. Many of these clients eventually realize that this isn't a survivable business model and they move on. But some really lean into it and push the grift as far as they can take it. Spiritual coaches often are the more scammy, grifty ones. And I actually did a video on one of these extreme spiritual coaches, which I will link in here as well if you want to check it out. She's a little loopy, but people are into this. So anyway, Ashley throws herself into this spirituality coaching business model. And by like 2015 or so, she really started to build out her brand around this. This is when she launched that company, the Live in Fantasyland company, which matches her main book title. So she started the company with the first book and so forth. And she kind of built the overall aesthetic of dreams, spirituality, and success. And then she linked all the Fantasyland with her dream branding. So her first book was called Live in Fantasyland, Make America Dream Again. And around the same time, several other self-published titles appeared as well. The exact dates of them are actually different depending on the platform and listing, so I'm not really sure exactly when each one was published, but it's not really super important. So her books include Dream, The Spiritual Pathway to Success, Dream Journal, then a business strategy journal, then one called The War on Your Money, and then the next one is The Personification of Beauty and Others. I do think it's important to point out here that I do think that Ashley is very smart, a lot smarter than people give her to be, and I think she either plays dumb or, I don't know, maybe she's caught up in the spirituality thing. I'm not sure.
They treat right brain dominant people like we have a mental health problem instead of acknowledging the genius that we have to offer. So I call myself a genius, and suddenly I'm schizophrenic because I can do better than you can.
But it is interesting because I have learned that if you want to have your books in the big chain bookstores, you need to be either you own a publishing company or you are under a publishing company. And that publishing company needs to have at least 3 books before they're considered like, big enough or whatever, reputable enough to be in these chain stores. So I do find it interesting because she did start a publishing company and she wrote those books very quickly. I did look at some of the reviews on them and some of them are actually reviewed pretty well. And I do think she actually is a very good writer. So her being able to like pump out this many books right away, which I know a couple of them have a co-author, but even doing co-authored books is difficult and time consuming because you're matching up with other people's schedules. Either way, this is a big accomplishment, to be honest, how quickly she got all these books out and getting a publishing company up and running. She does have drive. She just doesn't always make the correct decision. So what I want to add to our little notes as well is that I think she's highly intelligent and she plans things ahead of time. Doing this publishing company, it's a planning thing for her. So at this point in her story, Ashley is really trying to build a specific identity. She wants to be seen as an author, an entrepreneur, and a spiritual success coach. She blends Christian language with the business hustle and wraps it all up into this dream branding. And again, that's DR3AM, which she kind of covers as business, faith, and purpose all fused together. Her focus seemed to be very community driven and geared towards professional women. She really wanted to connect women for success and collaborate and rise together. It is a nice idea, but in practice, it doesn't really seem to take off. But like I said, some of her female friends even showed up as the co-authors on the books. And one of the old YouTube videos, she actually talks about a friend who took a chance on her and helped her secure a brick and mortar storefront. This is for a different brand and a different product. I'm not really sure what she was selling, but YouTube videos out there.
Some people think you gotta have so much money to be an entrepreneur, but really you just gotta be a risk taker and be willing to put yourself out there, put the little money that you have into it and get support. I was blessed with support from one of the most prolific people in Leesville, Louisiana, Abundant Women. And I also need your support, so come along this way.
So point is, she clearly had people around her who believed in her because a lot of people did these things with her or backed her financially or whatever it may be. And that's what makes the later shift feel so jarring. Somewhere along the line, the faith and business coach drifts hard into psychic territory. Tarot, downloads, and increasingly wild claims. Even in some of her pre-TikTok YouTube video content, a lot of what she was divining, in my opinion, already sounded kind of nutty, which leaves this uncomfortable question of where were those friends then when she started to kind of seem a little bit not in her right mind. The co-authors, the women who backed her store, the people in her circle. It looks like she had endless time to spiral on TikTok and no one close enough or willing to step in. And maybe the pandemic created distance or fallouts that we don't see and we don't know. But from the outside looking in, it really feels like there was a point where Ashley, the entrepreneur with a support network, quietly turned into Ashley, the nutty online psychic, and nobody seemed to be there to help her in her downward spiral. And this is where I want to add another note to this one too for the motives. There was an aspect of loneliness and isolation during that time during the pandemic, because this is when she starts going off on the deep end. Many people were feeling it. When she spiraled further down the psychic rabbit hole, it was the full-on lockdown years. So I do wonder if maybe that is something that caught up with Ashley that caused this whole thing to spiral out of control. Let's keep moving through her journey. Let's talk about her spiritual awakening. Somewhere around 2015, Ashley says that's when her spiritual journey kicked off. That's when she, started going down a path of seeking spirituality. In a Washington Post interview, she ties that directly to when she started reading tarot, framing it as part of this big awakening moment in her life. In that same interview, she's very clear that the information she shares comes from a spiritual gift, not from any kind of hands-on investigative work, police background, or actual case research. She doesn't really go into further detail. We don't really know what sparked the spiritual journey or how much of this is genuine history versus maybe some branding retroactively that she tried to apply to it. But whatever happened, this eventually led to her psychic era and her later virality on TikTok. When I was gathering clips for editing this video, I did find one where she explained that somebody contacted her ex because of the Rebecca situation. And based on sort of what she was saying, years and everything, it seems like actually she was divorced, not married. And I am suspecting, in my opinion, I don't know for sure, but I think maybe they got divorced around this time. I don't know if he divorced her because she started going down this path, or if she started going down this spiritual path because of the divorce, because it's a life-changing event. I will put the clip of her explaining about her ex in here, just so you're aware that I thought that she was still married, but it turns out she wasn't, which is probably also why she didn't have a whole lot of support system during the pandemic. She does say in other clips, which we'll get to, that she's been alone for 8 years. So, that could be causing a lot of these issues with her.
They wanted to do something to harm me, to silence me, right? So they contact my ex, so offers him money so that he can do something to betray me.
So the first dates we have for her public online content is 2018, mostly because that is what is still visible. In those early YouTube videos, she mentions also live streaming on Facebook, so it's hard to say if she started on Facebook first or was using both at the same time. A lot of her profiles have since been banned or wiped, so we're kind of working with fragments as best as we can. What we can see from 2018 is that her content started as more entrepreneur and coach with a light layer of spirituality on top of it. And it didn't take long. She eventually started testing the waters and pivoting to see what worked for online content for her. The coach energy starts to blend with more spiritual claims. She talks about feeling called to share her message with the world, helping people pursue their God-given assignments and dream again. She frames herself as a Christian influence motivator. She says that God or the Holy Spirit is telling her to do all this writing, content, whatever. She's using it as therapy, talking about advancing the kingdom and pushing all the faith-based ways to deal with anxiety, fear, and negative habits. But this starts to eventually, either she pivots or she starts to spiral, because somewhere along the path here, the balance shifts. The faith and mindset coach slowly gives way to just psychic. In my opinion, I think either the spiritual angle started getting more traction, or she got increasingly caught up in the fantasy of it all, and that's what eventually sets the stage for Ashley the Psychic. The Tarot Content Creator. As we move further into Ashley's story, I just want to remind you all that we're working with clips of Ashley's content that people happen to grab at the time and whatever's left on her YouTube and things we can scrape up. So yes, just to repeat, her original Facebook and TikTok are all gone and wiped. So everything I grab here is going to be best effort reconstruction. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have the time or the willpower to sit through thousands of hours of her uploads, even if they were available. But I have been actually following this story for years, and what's left, I can still map out the important points and the overall trajectory. I know it's up here in my brain a little bit. I'll try to grab what I can to make it all make sense. Okay, so we're going to start with the pre-TikTok psychic era, because she starts off things on Facebook and YouTube and then moves into TikTok, and TikTok is where she actually gets her fame. So if you watch her older content, you can see a very familiar progression. She's doing some testing of different ideas, and she pivots, she refines, and she ramps it up. She's clearly trying to figure out which niche will hit, and interestingly, she keeps gravitating toward the easy online money spaces. I mean, just to play devil's advocate for a minute here, if she is disabled, like I'm disabled too, sometimes we do seek out that stuff because we can't work 40 hours a week. So I understand if that's what her goal was to be. But you can try to find work like ethical work versus going down this path of scummy and grifting stuff, you know? So when her life coaching and entrepreneurship content doesn't really take off, she pivots harder into tarot and astrology. The business talk fades out, and she starts presenting herself more and more as a tarot reader and spiritual guide.
I have a gift. I have the ability to read into minds, read into past events, and into the future.
Okay, we're just going to take a look at her YouTube channel so you can kind of visually see the timeline that I was explaining to you all. So if we go to the oldest videos, right, we have the remove all negativity. This is the business journal thing, feed your faith. So like we have business and faith coach kind of videos here. How big do you dream? Divine communication. Everything works together. Morning and evening meditation. Yeah, so she's kind of doing all that. And then she eventually moves into a more like reading tarot cards. And even here, she's like, why I left Christianity. I actually didn't watch this one because she preaches Christianity through all of her stuff.
5 minutes later.
I just like quickly looked it over. It's a complicated discussion. Essentially, she's just trying to say that she doesn't want to put a label on herself and that she is a vessel of God on earth. This leads her down the path where she calls herself God a lot, but she's still talking a bunch of Christian stuff. It feels like she's kind of moving into the Jewish mysticism angle of things. But the thing is with this video, YouTube videos, there's a bunch of videos where people are saying why I left Christianity or I'm deconstructing from Christianity, and they take off really well. She is still very Christian based on everything else I've watched with her. I wouldn't say that she has left Christianity. She just doesn't want to label anything in a video she explains because she wants to be psychic and do tarot readings too. And that's technically like against the, whatever, for certain Christian. Anyway, that's the gist of the video that she has there. I think that honestly, it's a video to try to pick up an algorithm. I'm not sure. It's iffy with her. I think that she's very calculated, but then I also think that maybe she was losing herself a bit in New Age spirituality, maybe due to her divorce. It caused her to have a little bit of a meltdown here. Anyway, to carry on with what I want to show you guys. So you can see now she's getting special messages. She's leaning into the more psychic stuff, divine feminine. That is a big like buzzword in the algorithm as well. This person passed away and she starts like kind of talking about messages from him, which I did watch these and they're actually not bad. She's not saying that she was speaking directly to him. She was just the stuff that he did on earth, helping people is what we should do. Like it was actually, it's an okay message, right? She's not too off the wall yet. And then now she starts doing readings for different signs because this takes off in the algorithm. You call it a specific sign and the person's like, yeah, I'm a Virgo. I'm going to click on that. Awakening challenge. Okay, so there's kind of a coaching spiritual thing. Then she's talking about his tarot evil. Again, I'm not sure if she's creating these videos to work through her issues herself or if she's trying to hop on the algorithm because this is popular also on the algorithm too. What is the spirit guide? Again, popular in the algorithm as well. The numbers is also very popular with the spiritualism crowd. Now she starts doing a bunch of readings for the different zodiac signs here. Now she's pulling into tarot and she's pretty much like here, Ashley Guillard, spiritual leader, master manifestor, clairvoyant, medium. All of her videos now are all about the cards, psychic, and being a medium. So everything is all readings now. And she's fully into the psychic content and she's not worrying about any of the coach stuff or anything that she had going before. Manifestation stuff that also takes off well in the algorithm. Honestly, I do think that she was picking up on the algorithm. Then she got interested in the Atatiana Jefferson case, which we're going to go through each case. And this is where she started delving into some true crime and it kind of moves from there. And then she covers a couple conspiracy theories. But then, she starts covering more true crime and it's really pushing into true crime quite a lot. And then from here, then she heads off to TikTok, which we'll get to. And then she comes back recently because her TikTok got deleted, right? And she reposted the Idaho thing too. So anyway, I just wanted to show you the visuals so you can kind of see the progression that I was trying to lay out for you all. And to be fair, tarot and psychic content can make really good money online. There's a huge audience audience for it, and clearly Ashley knew this. She was probably consuming it, the different content. The problem is her YouTube channel never really takes off. And honestly, I'd argue there's a few key reasons why. With the tarot channels on YouTube, people want the whole aesthetic. They want like pretty decks, the artwork, cozy vibes, interesting like setup and background, and they really want to hear like a nice voice as well that's calming. So it means good lighting, good camera work, good setup, good placement, and good audio quality. And Ashley never really put effort into improving her production, and that's a big part of why she didn't really take off like other tarot and YouTube channels. So why did Ashley evolve from a general tarot and astrology creator into psychic detective? Well, it all began with the world-changing events of the 2020s. A psychic detective is born. We are now in the 2020s, the peak pandemic period, which also included the Black Lives Matters protests, and the world kind of was catching fire in every direction, to be honest. There's a culmination of many things going on at this time. When you look at Ashley's content during this period, you can really see a shift. She starts drifting away from the generic open-ended tarot readings and leans into something much more specific. She starts looking at using tarot on true crime cases that she feels personally connected to. And some of this may be Ashley being genuine. The pandemic and the BLM movement were pretty heavy. She may have felt called to use her abilities or her spiritual connection to help solve injustices in the world. Or it might be simpler than that. Maybe she realized that trying tarot on the current events and the viral cases in the news is a way for more clickable content, the kind of content that really does well in the algorithm. Either way, she clearly decides that true crime is now part of her persona.
I'm literally the only one that can help with this right now.
At this stage, she's mostly doing readings on already solved cases or things that are pretty old, like missing or cold cases. She uses her cards to reveal hidden thoughts and secrets, what the assailants were really thinking, what the victims supposedly knew, and what was being covered up, because she was riding on the conspiracy community bandwagon as well for a little bit, which was it grew pretty big during the pandemic period as well. However, she really stuck within the solved cases sort of area. And maybe this is why she didn't get as much traction, but it's likely the reason why she didn't land herself into the legal disaster that we see later with the Idaho 4 coverage. The stakes are different when a case is wrapped up and the assailant is known. But make no mistake, this was still her inserting herself into real-life tragedies that were going on at the time. These earlier videos may not have pulled the same numbers, but they still involved real victims, real families, and real grief that she was using to create content. And if you're asking, yes, she was definitely making up things back then even. But compared to what she eventually does on TikTok, these beginnings almost look tame. But this progression does matter. Watching how she escalates from tarot commentary on solved cases to full-blown accusations in an active investigation, this is a key part of understanding how she became what she became.
I was being defamed across the entire freaking United States of America and the world on the news media, and they were spreading misinformation, defamatory information about me.
A little bit of a tone shift here to go over a few ground rules for what's coming up next. From here on out in this video, we're going to be delving into true crime cases. So here's some of the ground rules that I'm going to use for this particular video for how these cases are going to be presented. Number 1, words and terms. In an effort to not use TikTok terms and to appease the YouTube, censorship and whatever, you may have noticed already, but I'm choosing my words carefully, not using certain words often or at all. This is just the way it is. And number 2, I'm not a true crime YouTuber. Personally, I really don't like the state of true crime. Like I said, it's become more exploitative than ever. So let me make it clear a few subheadings to all this or subpoints to all this. There's a lot of cases that we're going to cover. Most of them I'm going to be doing high-level overview on. I won't be going into the gory details as I don't really ever see it necessary to do so. And that is a shock tactic that a lot of people use for clicks and views. As well, I won't be saying the names of the assailants myself. I don't wish to give them any more attention, energy, or recognition. And I can't stand this new romanticizing going on in true crime where people are like romantically fantasizing about people who've done horrible crimes. I don't get it. As well, I am going to limit the names of surviving family and friends if they've been asked to be left out of coverage or if it's kind of unclear. If I miss any and there's a name I should remove later, let me know if they kind of rescinded their want to be in the news and whatnot. But for the most part, I'm going to avoid all the family and friends names specifically. Number 3. Lastly, I want to highlight the people at the heart of these cases. These aren't just stories, they're victims with lives, families, and a lot of pain left behind. So I'm going to be starting each of the cases with the victims, and then we're going to discuss what happened in the particular case. Some of them I may go into more detail on than others. There's no real rhyme or reason to it, just kind of the way it flowed and what I could find. Some cases have more information, some cases have less. The video is going to be different from my usual psychic expose, like I said earlier, and I just felt like I needed to make it this way. I don't really know why, but I really just felt like I wanted to highlight the victims more. I guess it's just out of anger for a psychic grief vampire ruining the memories of these victims. I just want us to recognize who they were and remember that their surviving family and friends are also victims. I want to dispel Ashley's lies with the truth as much as possible. And that means going into some detail on each case, making this video very long. But all my regular viewers really enjoy long videos anyway, so hopefully I've explained my stance on this all clearly and you understand by now. And I guess we'll see if you guys hate it or love it and how we covered this story. Again, like I said earlier, leave any feedback or thoughts that you have on it in the comments too. And as I go through all these cases, if there's a case that you want to learn more about, I really encourage you to look it up afterwards. I am going to just be really doing high-level overviews. There's obviously a lot more detail to each of the different cases, the court cases that happened, the evidence, and so forth. But before we begin into our first cases, there's a quote from Benjamin Roberts, a WSU student who wrote a paper about the Idaho 4 case. And I think it's a really fitting statement to the entire true crime genre. The stories you're reading in the paper, the cases you're reviewing, the studies you're doing. It can become easy to forget that they're connected to real people, and it's the real world and real consequences. People lose people and find their kid's bed empty. There's a real heaviness looking at that and realizing and remembering this is not just some sterile academic subject. This is something that affects people. The Black Lives Matter movement. I do realize that I'm white and I'm going to be tackling some of the cases that fueled the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm going to try to come at this with as much respect as possible. I'm in no way an expert or able to fully understand all the nuance as I haven't lived their experience. So I'm going to try to do what I can to make sure everything's respectful enough, but I may overlook something, so feel free to call it out in the comments, of course. And because I'm not going into a ton of detail on all the cases, if I don't cover something that you feel is important about a specific case, or if I get any facts incorrect, please let me know. And feel free to add any more context as well for other people to read below. All right, with all that out of the way, let's get back to Ashley. Ashley began applying her tarot skills to cases by covering some of the key deaths that fueled and or affected the BLM movement. Names like George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Elijah McClain, and Atatiana Jefferson became rallying cries in the fight against anti-Black racism and police violence in America and worldwide. And Ashley featured them all. So let's review each case and what Ashley had to say. I just want to include this clip from a news program before we get into all the BLM stuff as just recognition that during all this, there are still good police officers as well.
The majority of police officers every day, they go in and they do amazing jobs. They save us from criminals. They protect us. Most police officers, the majority of police officers are good, decent human beings that are public servants.
Atatiana Jefferson. Atatiana Jefferson, born November 28, 1990, was a 28-year-old, incredibly bright and accomplished Black woman. She graduated from Xavier University, where she earned a pre-med degree in biology in 2014.
Hi, my name is Atatiana Jefferson, and I'm doing lab exercise 5 for AMP1 lab.
She was saving money and working toward the goal of medical school. Her family describes her as intelligent, driven, and deeply caring. When her mother became ill, Atatiana moved back home in Fort Worth, Texas, to take care of her, and she also helped take care of her young nephew who was living there too. She was working in pharmaceutical sales while she was staying there, but I did read somewhere else that she may have been HR, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's just pharmaceutical sales. But she had a plan to return to school when the time was right. Atatiana was, at her core, a caregiver. She loved her family and put them first, and she changed up her life and her goals to be there for them in a time of need.
Atatiana was the glue that held this family together. She was so in love with babysitting, caring for her mother, showing up and counseling her sisters, that when they lost her, they lost balance.
Now let's discuss what happened. On October 12, 2019, Atatiana's life was cut short by a white police officer. What led up to the altercation was a neighbor called a non-emergency line for a welfare check, and this officer arrived on scene to see what was going on.
Early Saturday morning, Fort Worth officers responded to a welfare check call at Jefferson's mom's house because of an open front door.
The front door to the house was left open and it was 1 a.m., so the neighbor was just worried. Atatiana was actually playing video games with her nephew when she heard noises outside the window, so she got up to look outside to see what was going on. Police body camera footage showed that Atatiana walked to her window to look outside, and within just a second or two, the officer yelled, "Put up your hands," while simultaneously pulling the trigger. Atatiana had no chance. She was fatally wounded. And this just shouldn't have happened. She was inside her home and the officer was outside. This tells us the gravity of the police misconduct here. The police officer did not identify themselves at any point when they arrived. They didn't knock on the door that was open, nor did they give her a chance to respond before they used lethal force. They didn't even look in the door. Like I was saying, it was wide open. Why didn't they look in there before they started sneaking around to the backyard to look in the windows? Just clarification. He looked through the screen door, but he didn't open the door or knock on the door, didn't peek his head inside to see what was happening inside the home. It was very odd. And as soon as he saw someone in a window, he just took her life. He didn't even question what was maybe going on the scene. This was also a welfare check too, so why he had his service arm drawn in the first place came into question. The officer ended up quitting before he could be fired for violating policies on use of force and unprofessional conduct. He ended up being arrested on October 14, 2019 for homicide. On December 15, 2022, he was found guilty of the lesser included offense of manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 11 years, 10 months, and 12 days. This is a really sad case and a total disgrace for an officer who had no regard for a life that was yet to be lived. And as things came out about the officer's past, before he was hired and in his performance reviews, in my opinion, the Fort Worth police should have had an internal review on this guy, and there should have been repercussions for even allowing this man to continue working there. There was signs that they should have pulled him out or fired him throughout, the short time he was there.
The family of Atatiana Jefferson united in solidarity Monday, her sister asking for Fort Worth PD to step aside and allow an independent investigation into her killing.
There is simply no justification for his action.
I realize that no action we take can replace the loss suffered here. I'm deeply sorry for what occurred. I've received so many contacts from our officers who want to express how sorry they are as well, and how this is not indicative of the work they do every day.
To add to this really unfortunate story, Atatiana's neighbor felt regret and guilt for her death. They were quoted as saying, "If I had not called the police, she would still be alive. And I feel like it's partly my fault."
People say, well, James, it's not your fault. You're not your fault. But I made a call. I made the call because I thought that they were going to do what I called them to do, check on my neighbor. And they didn't do that.
The only reason he called the police was because he saw the door was open and it was really late at night. He just wanted them to make sure that Tatiana, her nephew, and her mother were safe. And he even called the non-emergency line too. And as I show you clips of surviving family and friends, I think it's important for us to remember nowadays more than ever that these people are living with trauma now and they are still surviving. They're still survivors that are out there. And when they come across videos that are like ghost hunters or psychics or whatever are getting involved in this, it can cause damage to these people who are already trying to work through all of their emotions. So that's why also I'm going to show some clips as well of some of the survivors that have spoken to the press too in all these different cases. As I explained, each case is going to be a short overview, and we'll be using this style for the rest of the cases in this video. Now, let's discuss how Ashley got involved. So how Ashley got involved? Well, in 2019, Ashley's first true crime tarot reading video was on Atatiana Jefferson. In this reading, Ashley applies her own biases about, it's really weird, about demons and angels and zombies, which she says a zombie is what the officer was, and that a zombie is someone who can be triggered and controlled by demons. I'm going to play you a clip of this reading because I want you to see her magical thinking in action.
He ain't even thinking for himself. He's a zombie. I'm going to do a video. It's like we have gods, we have demons, and we have zombies.
She honestly goes on a wild path of whatever thought process here, and this is like her first true crime reading, so it's already unhinged, and it just kind of goes from there for the rest of her career. And as well, let's bring up our little handy list of notes. We're going to add something here. I want to add a note about Ashley's mental health. The way that Ashley talks about this stuff here, it can seem really unhinged. And I got to wonder, like, did she have all of her mental faculties? Like, what's going on here? However, in a recent video that she posted, which we will eventually get to, it gives the vibes that she knows exactly what she's doing. And she clearly has her faculties. And a lot of her choices throughout all of this, throughout her path to where she is now, they seem to be very calculated and made with knowledge and foresight. So I don't know if she had some sort of mental health issue that got worsened during this time because she had the PTSD, or if she's like knowingly just being a grifter and leaning into it fully. Either way, it's something that is going to be part of the discussion when we go over Ashley's motives. All right, let's move on to the next case. Ahmaud Arbery. Ahmaud Arbery was a black man born May 8th, 1994 in Brunswick, Georgia. He was a star football player at Brunswick High School, and after graduating in 2012, he attended South Georgia Technical College, where he was training to become an electrician, and just like his uncles, he was sort of following in their footsteps. He was a promising young man whose dreams of an NFL career didn't quite pan out, but he enjoyed staying in shape by jogging regularly, which also helped keep his head clear as well. Those who knew him speak of a seemingly bottomless reservoir of kindness that he used to encourage others, of an easy smile and infectious laughter that could lighten just about any situation.
He was a no ma'am, yes ma'am type of fellow. I mean, if he could help you, he would. I mean, he just was a good boy.
Wish the world could have got a chance to know Ahmaud, to really truly love Ahmaud.
Now let's discuss what happened. On February 3rd, 2020, Ahmaud was out jogging in a Georgia neighborhood when he was chased and attacked by 3 armed white men. These men saw Ahmaud jogging and they decided and thought that he was a burglar running away from them or away from the house that he burgled. They decided to take matters into their own hands and hopped into their pickup and chased him down the street. They did call police, but instead of waiting for police, they decided to take action on their own. They ended up catching up to him. They were in a truck and he was on foot. The confrontation became heated very quickly, and they raised their firearms and pulled the trigger. Ahmaud had no chance. Now, when I was researching this, I did see some places saying that when officers arrived on scene, he was still alive, but then I also seen other places saying he died right there on the street. So I'm not sure, like, if medical could have gotten to him right away, if that would have saved him, because that was unclear. I found like differing answers on that. So if you happen to know, let me know. But this case is a little confusing. What happened after is really complicated, and I struggled to explain it properly without spending like an hour on this. Essentially, there was corruption in the DA's office, a lot of it, and also with one of the officers on scene. Police did arrive quickly, but one of the armed men was a retired investigator and former officer, and he was treated more like a colleague than a suspect. He created a story about self-defense and a citizen's arrest, and that was just accepted by this first officer on the scene there. Ahmaud was still alive when officers got there, but I mean, this is the unclear thing I can find. But no one was arrested on scene, and it's also unclear what kind of medical was given to him. And this is why we might not really know it properly, because there seems to be some corruption going on. For the next 74 days, 2 different DAs with personal and professional ties to one of the suspects told police not to make arrests. There were other police on the scene, and they said that they had enough to make the arrest. They wanted to arrest them, and the DAs told them no. The DAs leaned on Georgia's citizens arrest law and treated the perpetrators' versions of events as fact. That's why nothing happened for so long. The first DA at the time was trying to protect one of the assailants. Then they were replaced or something by a second DA who's doing the same thing too. Like I said, the other officers who responded on the scene, they said that there was probable cause to make an arrest, and then they contacted the DA's office to get the arrest warrant, and they were told, quote, "We're told not to make the arrest." For this altercation, there was a video of what happened. This is where things get even more weird in this case, and I didn't want to get into the details of it. The man who filmed it actually was with the guys. He was the third man. He did end up getting charged at a certain point, but he had his lawyer make the footage public. I think that he was trying to act like he was a concerned citizen, and he was trying to play dumb. He even tried to do some press interviews to try to like clear his name. Anyway, if you want to look into that some more, it's a whole big thing. This case is very complicated, and I wanted to sum it up a little bit quicker, but just wanted to add this about the third man and who filmed it and why it was released. The video was leaked and it went viral.
5-year-old Ahmaud Arbery, seen here being killed in the street on February 23rd in Brunswick.
This video created major change in the case. Public outrage forced the state investigative agency to step in.
Tonight on the streets of Brunswick, a deafening roar in honor of Arbery.
Who we want with? More! Who we want with? More!
All 3 men were arrested, indicted on multiple homicide and related charges, and convicted in state court and sentenced to life in prison. Even after that happened, then a federal jury further found them guilty of hate crimes and attempted kidnapping, and they added even more time on top. And then they formally recognized that Ahmaud was targeted because he was black.
2 prosecutors recused themselves over conflicts of interest. One writing he believed the McMichaels' actions were perfectly legal.
The one former DA, the first one, who said no to arresting them, was indicted for blocking the arrests and favoring one of the assailants. She lost the re-election, though the charges were just thrown out. The second DA, who also blocked the arrest, faced heavy public criticism, but again received no charges. The case helped push Georgia to pass a state hate crime law and to repeal the old citizens arrest law, tightening what private citizens are allowed to do going forward. This case was just one of many that started coming up at this time. We reached a point where people are being videotaped all the time now. All this stuff was already happening, but no one could prove it. And now that there's cameras everywhere, especially nowadays, now we can prove that all this stuff is happening. But let's discuss what Ashley said about Ahmaud. Ashley yet again used her cards to speculate on the mindset and the motives of everyone involved. She then went on like a big rant to explain that the assailants did it for clout and attention, and they did it to gain notoriety within a certain group in the US, you know, the ones that are against people of color, the ones who wear white robes. You know, those people, that pretty much that they did all this to gain favor with those groups.
Basically, they did it for their supporters. They wanted to increase in value. Whatever groups they were a part of, they did it for them.
All right, now the next case. Elijah McClain. Elijah McClain was a 23-year-old black man born February 25th, 1996 in Aurora, Colorado. Everyone who knew Elijah would talk about him being gentle, kind, and a little bit different, but in the best way. His mom moved the family to Aurora to get away from gang violence and live a safer life. Elijah grew into what people described as a spiritual seeker, a pacifist, an oddball, a vegetarian, an athlete, and a peacemaker. He was homeschooled by his mother, who saw early on that he was both intellectually gifted and fiercely independent. As a teenager, Elijah taught himself the violin and guitar, and he didn't just play for himself. In fact, on his lunch breaks, he'd go over to the animal shelters and play music to soothe the abandoned animals. A friend said the softness he showed animals was exactly how he treated people. He was even a vegan as well. Like, he really didn't even hurt anything, not even a fly, they said. At the time of his death, he'd been working as a massage therapist for about 4 years and was sharing an apartment with his cousin. One of his massage therapy clients called him, and I quote, "the sweetest, purest person I have ever met, a light in a whole lot of darkness." Elijah had never been arrested or charged with any crime before. He never caused any trouble in his life. While he was never formally diagnosed, a lot of people believe that he was autistic. And many autistic black people and their families have said that they see themselves in him, in his sensitivity, how he moved through the world, and how easily he was misunderstood.
McClain was 23 years old, a massage therapist who friends say would constantly bow as a sign of gratitude.
So what happened? On the night of August 24th, 2019, Elijah was walking home from a store. He was wearing a balaclava and listening to music. Someone ended up calling 911 and reported a suspicious person wearing a mask and waving his arms.
The 23-year-old black man was in a neck restraint and injected with a sedative in a Denver suburb, stopped as he was walking home from the store, according to a city investigation.
People who knew Elijah later explained that he wore his mask regularly because he was anemic and got cold easily, and he was likely dancing to music as he walked. I kept seeing everywhere that he was vegan or vegetarian, so that would explain, the possible anemia if he didn't supplement his diet. As well, anemia can cause weakness, which is important as the officers tried to say that he had super strength, and he just didn't. But that night, he wasn't committing a crime. He was just walking home, listening to music and enjoying his walk. 3 white officers arrived on scene and confronted him.
Stop. I have a right to stop you because you're being suspicious.
Despite there being no actual crime, they later claimed that he resisted and was reaching for a sidearm. In this case, there's no body cam footage of the crucial moments because the officers say that their cameras fell off. Just a correction, I didn't dive deep into this, but they first said that their body cams fell off and there was no footage, and then later there is footage of the whole event. So I'm assuming some kind of corruption or cover-up or something weird was going on there. I didn't explore the body cam stuff fully, so if you know more about it, feel free to put it in the comments. But the audio kept recording, and on that audio, Elijah can be heard saying things. I don't want to play the audio for you guys because I don't want to exploit what happened to him. I had planned to just read off a few of the things that he said. I can't do it. I'll put some of it up on the screen for you if you want to read it.
Some of McClain's last words "I'm just different," have become a rallying cry at protests in his name.
And these officers handcuffed him and pinned him to the ground for 15 minutes. At one point, Elijah was put in a chokehold, cutting his blood flow to his brain and causing him to lose consciousness. By the time paramedics arrived, he was already cuffed and restrained. In Colorado, at the time when this happened, EMS were allowed to use ketamine for a controversial diagnosis called excited delirium. The officers described Elijah as acting crazy or definitely on something with incredible crazy strength. This was all language that helped them justify sedating him, even though he was already on the ground, not moving and in handcuffs. Paramedics estimated his weight and they ended up injecting 500 milligrams of ketamine, but they estimated wrong. The correct dose should have been closer to 320. He was significantly given too much and it did not go well. On the way to the hospital, he went into cardiac arrest. He was placed on life support and he passed 3 days later. His initial autopsy listed the cause of death as undetermined. Officers had met with the coroner beforehand and they were present during the time of the autopsy, which raised serious questions about their influence over the person performing the autopsy. For a long time, Elijah's case got very little attention, but that did change after the BLM movement grew. Elijah's story resurfaced and it went viral.
The George Floyd case made it apparent that it was going to keep continuing. It wasn't going to stop.
There were mass protests in Denver and Aurora demanding justice and an independent investigation.
For more than 10 months, Elijah McClain's father says he's been fighting for justice.
He was special, and he is missed.
They murdered my friend.
Marna Arnett was one of his clients for more than 2 years.
Nobody should die like this. Nobody should be walking home and be worried that they'll never get there.
Under pressure, Colorado's governor ordered the case re-examined and brought in the attorney general as a special prosecutor. An independent report in February 2021 ended up finding the following. First off, the officers did not have legal grounds to stop and frisk or restrain Elijah. Second, their claims that he was resisting weren't backed up by any sort of evidence. Third, the ketamine injection was not based on adequate medical assessment. Fourth, the department failed to seriously investigate what its own officers did as well. So in September of 2021, a grand jury indicted the 3 officers and 2 paramedics on charges including manslaughter and related offenses. After public pressure and news organizations suing them as well, an amended autopsy was released in September of 2022. This new report listed the cause of death as, and I quote, complications of ketamine administration following forcible restraint. The trials took place in 2023 and the results were not great. 2 officers were acquitted. 1 officer was convicted of criminally negligent homicide and assault, and he was sentenced to only 14 months in county jail plus community service. The paramedics were found guilty of negligent homicide. One of them was initially sentenced to prison before that was reduced to probation, and the other just received probation as well. Elijah's family filed a civil rights lawsuit against the city of Aurora, and they won. They ended up getting a $15 million settlement, one of the largest in Colorado history for a police-related death. This case is a pretty big one and it's a little bit complicated as well, but it's a good example of what was fueling the BLM movement. Let's move on to what Ashley had to say about it. For this case, she wasn't as off the wall as the other ones. She ended up just speculating on the mindset and the motive of those involved. She focused on the EMTs plotting with the police to take Elijah's life, which wasn't as crazy as some of the other cases. But she was really focused on the EMTs. At the time, the EMTs weren't indicted yet, so she was kind of really focused on they knew more than they did and blah, 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 and they should be indicted. Like that was sort of her angle. And it made sense, you know, that discussion. And they did end up going to court and everything, even though I don't understand the charges that they put on those people were nothing. So
I would like them all to be held accountable. The EMT is not being listed here. I feel like the EMT is a part of it.
So I'm going to do a reading to see like what their motives were. We know the motives, but I still want to do a reading to get insight.
Now we're going to move on to the most influential case of the BLM movement that Ashley, of course, did cover. George Floyd. George Floyd was a 46-year-old black man born October 14, 1973 in Fayetteville, North Carolina. But he really grew up in Houston, Texas. George became a standout high school athlete, earning a football scholarship. He attended South Florida Community College, then transferred to Texas A&M University, Kingsville in 1995, before eventually dropping out. Outside of sports, he was part of the Houston hip-hop scene under the name Big Floyd, and he was close friends with future NBA player Steven Jackson. People who knew George described him as a gentle giant. He was kind, soft-spoken, and able to connect with others because he understood hardship. He grew up in a poverty-stricken housing project and spent time in prison for nonviolent crimes. One of his friends was quoted as saying that George made some mistakes that cost him some years of his life, but he was actively trying to turn things around. George did struggle with substance use. He became involved in his religious community, mentoring others and posting anti-violence messages. In one video, he talked about his own shortcomings and flaws, saying that he wasn't better than anyone else and urging people to put down their weapons, reminding them that they were loved by him and by God. His care for others showed up in his actions. He delivered meals to seniors, volunteered with the Angel by Nature Foundation, and he later joined a ministry focused on rehabilitation and job placement. In 2014, Floyd moved to the Minneapolis area to rebuild his life. He completed a program as well to get clean, and he spent some time working security and truck driving jobs while continuing to struggle with cycles of use and sobriety. He was on and off the wagon a lot. By 2020, he had lost both his jobs because of the pandemic. It happened shortly before the incident that would bring his name into global conversation. When we talk about George Floyd, we're talking about a man who was an athlete, an artist, a mentor, a volunteer, and a friend. Someone who struggled but kept trying to get back on track and cared deeply about his community.
He was a great brother, father. He always excelled in sports his entire life. He was a high school star. He excelled in football, basketball as well. Went to college to Florida. He started out there, and also he was an athlete in football as well. And he went to Texas A&M, Kingsville, and played football. And as a person besides sports, he coached kids as well in spare time. He was a rapper, local rapper as well. He's an all-around man. And good to his family, kids, mother, brothers, friends. He would help anyone who needed help. He had a great understanding of life and great people person, walk in a room and absorb the whole room. Mm-hmm. And if you got a chance to know him, you would have loved him. And you can't name someone who never had a great experience around him.
So what happened? On May 25th, 2020, in Minneapolis, George Floyd's life was forcibly taken by a white police officer. A convenience store employee called police saying that Floyd allegedly used a counterfeit $20 bill. Police arrived to find Floyd sitting in a car with two other passengers. After they pulled him out and handcuffed him, that's when things escalated. Eventually, the officer forced Floyd to the ground and he knelt on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. All while two officers helped hold him down and a fourth officer stopped bystanders from getting close, even as people pled with them all to stop and let him up. During this situation, Floyd repeatedly would tell them, "I can't breathe." And he called out for his mother. They ignored his pleas, and then tragically, he became unresponsive as he died. The medical examiner later ruled his death a homicide, saying that his heart stopped while he was being restrained by law enforcement. Neck compression was listed as the cause of death.
He would never see her grow up, graduate. He would never walk her down the aisle.
This is the man I loved for 3 years.
Courtney Ross is Floyd's girlfriend.
This case of bystander's cell phone footage of the incident, this one, it went viral within hours. And this video is the reason that the whole world knows exactly what happened. It directly contradicted the original watered-down police statement and made it impossible to hide what went on. And this further displayed the history of officers downplaying their use of force, especially against people of color, and especially when it's white police officers, which this one was.
No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police.
People were out yesterday late into the night in South Minneapolis. Earlier in the day, thousands demonstrated near 38th in Chicago, where 46-year-old George Floyd of St. Louis Park was taken into custody and then died.
There have been growing calls for criminal charges for the 4 Minneapolis police officers already fired after the arrest of an unarmed man turned deadly this week.
It took a bit of time and pressure from the public, but the officer was eventually fired, arrested, and convicted of homicide. He was sentenced to 22 years in prison. The other 3 officers on the scene were also convicted on state and/or federal civil rights charges for their roles in restraining Floyd and failing to intervene. Floyd's death sparked global protests under the Black Lives Matter movement. Millions of people around the world were marching against police brutality and racial injustice, and demanding serious reform and accountability. The whole world saw what had been happening this whole time, and people refused to look away.
We've been overwhelmed with the amount of support that we've seen from people out protesting.
George Floyd understandably pushed Ashley deep into the BLM movement, and she created multiple videos on him, and she speculated on different things like the mindset of everyone involved, possible secrets, the thoughts of people in the courtroom, the lawyers, the jurors, and everything. She made like a lot of videos on it. I didn't watch all of them on George. There were only a few on YouTube, but I've heard like the majority, a ton of them were on TikTok, which are gone now. But I don't know the details of how crazy her thinking got on that one. I didn't find too much about clips or anything on that. However, with all this, with the BLM stuff, I want to just bring up the notes and just make a note. It adds on to the mental health thing, and it's really just around, could the BLM movement have played a role in starting her down the path of becoming a psychic detective? And as well, during this time, another homicide happened that Ashley felt really close to, as it was a female in the military. So let me also touch on explaining this case as well, because I do believe that it was the Black Lives Movement cases in this next case that really pushed Ashley into her TikTok psychic detective persona. There may have been a bit of emotional investment, could have even been a little bit of mental health issues going on here, and then just saw an opportunity to. I think that she started off with intentions because she obviously cared about these issues, but then it kind of got out of control. All right, let's talk about this last case before her move over to TikTok. Vanessa Guillen, born September 30th, 1999, was a 20-year-old U.S. Army soldier stationed at Fort Hood in Texas. But before all of that, she was a Houston kid with big dreams and a lot of drive. Born and raised in Houston to Mexican immigrant parents, Vanessa grew up in a big close family with 5 siblings. She went to Cesar E. Chavez High School, where she managed to be both an athlete and an overachiever, playing soccer, running track and cross country, lifting weights, and still graduating in the top 15% of her class in 2018. Since the age of 10, Vanessa had one clear goal: to join the U.S. Army. And in 2018, she made that happen. She enlisted and trained as a 91F Small Arms and Artillery repairer and was assigned to Fort Hood, working in a technical role most people never see up close. Friends and family describe her as a fitness enthusiast with a contagious laugh, strong, disciplined, and always pushing herself. In 2020, she got engaged to her fiance, Juan Cruz, and when she wasn't on base, she spent as much time as possible back home in Houston with him and her family. Vanessa was a daughter, a sister, a fiance, a top of her class student, and a relentless, hardworking young woman who had finally achieved the dream she carried out since Guillen's childhood.
How should we remember Vanessa? She is now a hero to those that were voiceless, to those that were scared. I have to take care of my family, and I have to make sure that she just doesn't, her name doesn't just go in vain.
Thinking for us to give us, better opportunities than what they ever had. I feel like that's also one of the reasons why she also served, to bring respect and honor to our family. Vanessa loved her time in boot camp. She not once complained. She was having the time of her life. She was so happy. Obviously, she missed home. She missed us. She was very mature, very full of life.
So what happened? On April 22nd, 2020, Vanessa disappeared from Fort Hood Base in Texas in the middle of her workday. Her car keys, ID, bank card, and barracks key were all found inside the armory where she worked, which her family immediately pointed out was not something she would have just walked away from. For more than 2 months, her family pushed, protested, and begged for answers, while the army released very little information.
Senado, a la presidencia. Aquí no. Aquí no.
Then on June 30th, 2020, partial human remains were found near the Leon River about 20 miles from Fort Hood. They were later identified as Vanessa. Around the same time, the main suspect was a fellow soldier who fled the base and took his own life when the police were closing in on him. He did have a civilian girlfriend, and she was arrested, and she did eventually plead guilty to helping him hide and destroy Vanessa's remains. She was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison for her role in covering up the crime. Before she went missing, Vanessa had told her family that she was being inappropriately harassed by a superior and that other women who complained about him weren't being taken seriously. He was trying to pressure women to be intimate with him, forcibly. She was scared to report it formally because complaints were supposed to go up to the chain of command. This is the same system that included the people she said were harassing or ignoring her.
Which is unacceptable because she was supposed to be safe while working and protecting the country we live in. My sister's a human being! And I want justice! And I want answers!
Her death ended up sparking the hashtag.
Thousands of female soldiers broke rank and spoke out. Hashtag I am Vanessa Guillen became a battle cry for service members, politicians, and celebrities.
Service members came forward with their own stories of harassment and assault within the military. Public pressure was enormous. There were protests, national media coverage, a Netflix documentary, and eventually congressional hearings took place. An independent review later found that there was a permissive environment for harassment and assault at Fort Hood, and 14 leaders at the location were disciplined.
This should not happen in a U.S. military institution. I'm angry. I'm so angry right now.
The family now fighting to pass a bill in Congress to change procedures relating to sexual harassment and assault in the military, all in Vanessa's name.
Out of that came real policy changes. Lawmakers introduced the I Am Vanessa Guillen bill. And in the years that followed, Congress and the White House moved key parts of it into law. And this included taking decisions about pursuing sex-related cases out of the direct chain of command and making it its own specific crime under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Sadly, there's still a lot of work ahead with this. Guillen was posthumously advanced from private first class to the rank of specialist on July 1st, 2020. This case didn't just expose one horrific crime, it forced a spotlight onto how the military handles harassment and helped push through some of the biggest reforms the system has seen in years. Now, what did Ashley have to say about this? For this case, Ashley, she definitely gets a little bit loopy and lets her imagination kick in. First, she says that she doesn't like to assume that he is guilty just because the news said he is, even though there's proof and a confession from the guy's girlfriend. Ashley often reiterates the fake news conspiracy talk as well in a lot of her different readings and whatever theories. So she does a video on this, and she starts by pulling out a sex tarot deck to do this reading, which I think is totally inappropriate considering. She then goes on to say that the person did this out of satisfaction and habit, but then she says that he's a serial killer, but then there are no other homicides that link to him, so this is just like wild accusations. She then says that the assailant was protecting his spouse or lover, and that's why he did it. But she's already given you 3 different reasons why he did it. Like, she's just all over the place with this one. And she does say that his spouse helped him, which, yes, she did help with the cover-up of it, and she admitted to it when everything went down. So Ashley's just saying things that were like already in the news. She goes back and forth between it having to do with protecting his girlfriend or he did it for pleasure. Either way, it was a very inappropriate reading.
Okay, why did this happen to this soldier? I'm a veteran, so I was touched by the story. It's interesting. I used the Tarot of Spectral Magic deck, that the person did it out of pure satisfaction, out of habit. It wasn't something that it was a surprise. Sounds like a serial killer. Sounds like. Euphoria came out. I guess it gives him feelings of joy. What was his role? I don't want to assume he was the killer just because it's on the news, just because it's on social media. Based on the news article that his girlfriend was also involved, it was done as a family, or it was done as a couple, and it's related to family.
Now, if we bring up our little list of notes here on this one, Ashley does talk about dealing with her own SA in the past. There's a possibility that she didn't actually experience SA because it said on the books that the stories were about women who experienced trauma from their mothers and SA. So maybe her story was only about her mother. Either way, like, she's experienced some trauma in her life, but I do wonder if maybe she hadn't experienced SA, because some of the stuff she says is really inappropriate for someone who's been through it. I would think that she would know better. I wasn't going to buy her book to find out. I didn't read any of her books. Like, I just kind of read information about them. So I'm not sure if this happened to her while she was in the military, but in one of the books she co-authored with the 3 other women, one woman works full-time for a branch of the military as lead of SA and harassment reporting. It's called something like that. It's like a human resource area, and then people go to her to report things like this. All of this stuff at this time was very emotional and heart-wrenching. So was it possible that Ashley was experiencing some sort of mental break, a reminder of what happened in the past? Or was she just taking advantage of people's grief and outrage so that she could grow an audience? But her being ex-military and experiencing her own SA as well, I could see why she would be interested to cover this case, but I feel the way she covered it was completely inappropriate, and she should know better considering her background. All right, so shortly after this is when Ashley moved over to TikTok. She joined TikTok with the handle Ashley Solves Mysteries, and then she begins her spiral deeper down into the true crime psychic genre. TikTok explosion. Here we are, pretty much in the heart of the pandemic lockdown. Everyone and their mother is suddenly living online. People have lost jobs or been pushed into working from home, or, some are just lonely and bored out of their minds. So social media becomes the place to hang out, cope, and escape. This was a big era where people were blowing up on TikTok and YouTube, and a lot of creators who are massive now got their start because everyone was locked inside their home, when people were using content to feel less isolated. Some of you who follow my channel recognize names like Selena Spooky Boo, Call Me Chris. They're perfect examples of creators who really took off and became popular because of that time. And now we enter Ashley. From what I can tell, she shifts almost entirely to TikTok and just lets YouTube die out. She sees TikTok and it is perfect for her. Short, fast, dramatic content, all on your phone, no studio, no setup, or at least low setup, low production standards. people aren't expecting polished cinematic videos over on TikTok. It's very much an in-the-moment kind of deal. And there is a clear pipeline from TikTok fame to branching out and making money on other platforms in many different ways, including writing, or, some people grew out their YouTube channel from there.
As Ashley got more popular, she began publishing books along with her social media content. She created a book series called Solving Mysterious Deaths, where she used her spiritual gifts to solve cold cases. She also released books about manifestation and spirituality.
Ashley, she found her audience on TikTok very quickly.
Ashley quickly gained 105,000 followers and 2.6 million likes on TikTok. For a while, Ashley had a small community of supporters who believed her every word.
Now, if we bring up our list of notes here, the next note I want to add, Ashley's move to TikTok is where I personally feel like she shifts into knowingly trying to grow as a grifting psychic. Her choices in platform, style, content, it all feels more calculated, but her visions are still very, for lack of a better word, unhinged. So it's something to revisit when we analyze for motives about how much she was knowingly acting out the role in the right platform at the right time.
I'm Ashley, and I am God, because I am one with the Spirit of God that lives inside of me.
Ashley does change her handle a few times as well, between Ashley Solves Mysteries, Ashley is the Book of Life, and Ashley is God. The last two obviously are pretty concerning.
One thing was clear, Ashley truly believed she was psychic. She was so confident that she wrote Ashley is God in her TikTok bio.
However, I feel like sometimes she is trolling us, almost like rage bait, which people do a lot of rage bait to build engagement and have videos go viral, which may have been her whole plan to begin with. On TikTok, Ashley establishes her social media presence as a psychic/spiritual guide. She leans hard into true crime content and psychic investigation videos. She makes it clear that her source is tarot, intuition, and spiritual gifts, not any kind of traditional investigation.
So I wrote this book here, Solving Tamla Horsford's Death. I did this without being there, and I used my spiritual gifts to do so.
As well, she has no proof that she solved any cases. This kind of happened when she went to TikTok, which is why I don't think she's that delusional. I think this was a choice. Major news outlets do later describe her as a self-styled Texas psychic or a purported internet sleuth. Not a licensed PI or anything remotely close, though. The Guardian and other publications note that she has sought to take credit for solving a bunch of high-profile murders. Again, no proof of anything. And TikTok becomes the place where Ashley becomes bold. She stops presenting things as speculation and starts delivering her claims as fact. Because even though her claims were wild over on YouTube, she would still say things like, I think, or the cards are telling me. But then she eventually on TikTok moves to this whole, this is what happened. And there's no question about whether she's saying it's fact or not.
It's very clear to me, just based on this person's social media profile, that their brain has just been absolutely warped by social media clicks and views. I don't think they actually care about the views that they like to preach that they care about, and I think this person is just here to exploit victims and use names in the pursuit of social media attention.
So as she works this psychic detective shtick, it's important to remember that Ashley is also a writer. She has written a number of books and obviously enjoys writing. She's able to pump out stuff very quickly. In my experience, I have found, and you know what, go do this with every run into a psychic later down the road. Any psychic who has written more than 2 books, they tend to be very grifty, and they really lean into storytelling in their visions. They build these elaborate narratives and then present them as reality. But the real reality is their visions are fictional. When you fact check them, they've just been making stuff up off the top of their head. There is one video about Ashley I did find especially useful, and it's from a creator called Lazy Bedhead. They break down some of the cases Ashley has covered and show examples from her TikTok beginnings. There are 2 cases that I want to highlight that Lazy Bedhead also highlighted, and I felt were very telling towards Ashley's spiral that she eventually goes into with the Idaho 4 case. And please do go check out Lazy Bedhead's full video on this. She did an excellent job summarizing these cases. As well, please go check out all the other creators and videos that I show here. I put all of their handles in the top right-hand corner. I didn't actually know about these 2 cases before But after hearing about them, I realized that this shows the sort of ramp up of Ashley's magical thinking and her fanfic style psychic visions. So I think it's important to review these two cases before we get into the Idaho 4. Josh Guimond. Joshua, aka Josh Guimond, was born on June 18, 1982 in Minnesota. An only child in a small Catholic town, he was raised in a very religious environment. In high school, Josh graduated as valedictorian. He was class president and was voted most likely to succeed.
Tonight, we stand at the threshold of a new beginning.
Josh was the valedictorian of the Maple Lake class of 2000. And no one doubted he was on his way to a future as a lawyer and politician.
That's what he wanted to do, and he knew it wasn't going to be easy, but that's what he wanted, and he would have accomplished.
Josh was very open about wanting a future in law and politics. His grandmother had served in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and he talked about following that path. At one point, he even had his email handle as Senator Joshua, which tells you that this wasn't just some vague dream. By 2002, he was a 20-year-old junior at St. John's University in Collegeville, which was a Catholic university. He was majoring in political science, he was an honor student, treasurer of the Pre-Law Society, and also co-captain of the mock trial team. He also played baritone in the university's wind ensemble as well. He had already started building the resume for law school and a political career. Friends and family describe him as smart, confident, and driven, but also funny and warm once you got past the future senator sort of exterior that he had on. He tutored other students, stayed active on campus, and paid attention to issues that made other people uncomfortable. He would do deep dives into things like church scandals and local politics because he felt that they mattered and can't just be ignored and swept under the rug. Josh was a bright, outspoken, small-town kid with big plans who seemed to be on his way somewhere big in life.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Brian Guimond can't help but smile, thinking about the life his son Josh could have had.
Even when he was little, he'd always be like a lawyer and argue, you know?
With you?
Yep.
And this leads us to what exactly happened. On the night of November 9, 2002, Josh went missing after attending a small party on campus.
A popular, successful St. John's University student disappeared walking to his dorm.
At 11:06 p.m., keycard records show Josh leaving his room in St. Maur Hall, then heading out to the party at a friend's room in Metten Court. This was about a 3-minute walk away. He was wearing a gray St. John's sweatshirt and jeans, and he left behind his wallet, keys, glasses, and contact solution. He clearly planned to not be very far away for very long.
The walk back from the Metten Court to Josh's residency was only a 3-minute walk. The last anyone had seen Josh was at 12:15 a.m., where 2 witnesses saw him walking across a bridge trail.
At the party, he played cards, drank a little bit, and people at the party said that he seemed fine, but then some other people said he seemed a little tipsy but not wasted. He wasn't really there for that long, but nobody saw him acting distressed or strange in any way. So at 11:45 p.m., he quietly got up and left without saying goodbye, which for that group wasn't unusual. It was party, people come and go. So he was only there for like 45 minutes. To get back to his room, he passed near Stump Lake over a small bridge.
Joshua Guimond was last seen going across this bridge back to his dorm on campus.
2 witnesses later reported seeing someone who looked like Josh on that bridge between 12:15 and 12:30 a.m., and that's the last possible sighting that there was of him. He never made it home to his dorm. The next day, Josh didn't show up for his classes, his car was still on campus, and his belongings were in his room. That's when the police were called and he was reported missing.
On November 9th, 2002, just before midnight, Josh left a poker party at the Metten Court student housing and never made it back to his dorm at St. Maur House. In between those 2 buildings is a small lake and a bridge that investigators presume Josh would have to cross to get home. Stearns County Sheriff's investigators' best guess at the time, and the theory that persisted in the public realm for years, was that Josh, who was drinking that night, fell into Stump Lake.
There are some main theories on Josh's case. This is an old case. There's a lot of theories, so we'll go over a few of them. It's very complicated, this whole case. And like I said, between family, friends, investigators, PIs, and online sleuths, there's a lot of theories out there. I'm going to try to summarize each one. The first theory, accidental drowning. This was the original dominant theory. Josh leaves the party drunk, walks near a lake, and falls in. Over multiple years, they actually did a bunch of land, dive, and sonar searches that turned up nothing, not even any clothes, leaving investigators skeptical of this theory.
Josh's dad believes detectives lost valuable time that should have been spent investigating other theories. Brian had to request himself twice to bring in the elite Trident dive team to definitively clear the bodies of water months after the disappearance.
Hour one, Castreba, the sheriff at the time, said he's in the lake. End of story. I says, well, what if you're wrong? You better start doing something else. Nope.
A theory by the police was that he fell into this lake here, Stump Lake. It's something that is a hard to believe hypothesis, because that bridge over there wasn't there at the time. And to fall into that lake, this wall is here, yeah, but there's a whole other bit of water and a downslope and lots of brush. The whole lake was calm. His body was never found after extensive searches.
And then as a side angle to this, there's of course the smiley face theory, which is like a conspiracy theory of any drowning. At this point, it seems like any drowning in the US of a man is now tied to this, even though so many of them have been debunked, to the point that like if there was a killer or group of out there at this point, it's such a joke that no one's taking it seriously. And this is where conspiracy theories hurt cases more than they help them. We're going to cover it off because people are going to bring it up. Like I said, any drowning of a man, especially around like the Midwest or East Coast or something, gets tied to this, but it's been spreading across multiple states. So some people try to link Josh's case to this. However, the majority of law enforcement across the US have treated this smiley face conspiracy with a lot of skepticism. Like, any serious investigator really doesn't take it seriously because it's been like way overblown. I'd hazard a guess that probably like 99% of law enforcement knows that this whole theory is too far-fetched. People try to put anyone, any male missing or drowned into this, and that is just, it's too general of a bucket. Now, the next theory is the Abbey scandal. This theory is tied to the long history of SA at St. John's Abbey, and the Abbey sat next to the university. Around the time that Josh disappeared, the Abbey was in the middle of a major SA scandal going on that was being outed.
St. John's Abbey stands unchanged on the campus of St. John's University, but within the walls, there's a shift in leadership. Father Tom Ander, the monastery's prior or second in command, stepped aside for now, following accusations he murdered a former student. This isn't the first time a monk has been the focus of a investigation. The Abbey has a list of 18 monks with credible claims over the last 40 years.
So I was filming that clip to put in a video here, and then I looked at all the recommended videos after this, and yeah, like this 14 years ago, this 11 years ago, 9 years ago, yeah, there's a lot. In October 2002, just weeks before Josh vanished, the Abbey settled multiple lawsuits. However, some monks with known allegations were still living on campus in areas connected to the students. And Josh became aware of this and was angry and disturbed. This isn't the first time that he's spoken out about things against the church. Investigators later found searches on his computer related to the Abbey and those cases. Private Bloodhound, working with the family, reportedly tracked Josh's scent towards the Abbey, but staff wouldn't allow access to where the dog led the investigators. And this was like, I think in the first day or a couple days or something that this happened. So then it was like 20 days or 30 days later, then they finally let them in with the dog, but nothing concrete was found, but it was a number of days later. So anyway, Josh's father and many others do believe that there's a connection between the Abbey and Josh's disappearance. And this is the predominant theory among those like closest to Josh and his family and everything. The next theory is a secret online life, and this theory also makes sense too, and a lot of people do believe it. This theory is popular amongst online sleuths and a lot of Josh's extended family. Josh's room was not immediately treated as a crime scene, meaning that anyone could access his computer and use it. Days into the investigation, investigators discovered that the browser history had been wiped using an internet washing program. So it wasn't a simple like clear the cache deletion thing. Deletion of data remains a major red flag in this case. So by 2008, they were able to recover the data from the browser. So it took a long time to do this.
That somebody had run an internet washer several days after Josh's disappearance.
What they ended up finding was searches on how to make fake IDs. Then they also found multiple Yahoo Personals profiles as well. There were conversations with both men and women in different chat rooms. And there was at least 2 profiles where Josh posed as a woman using an unknown blonde woman's photo. So this led to a theory that Josh may have been exploring his sexuality online, and maybe he arranged to meet someone in person. His family and most of his friends say that they didn't know him to be gay or trans. However, one male friend said that Josh once tried to kiss him, suggesting that there are parts of his life that he hadn't fully shared, which usually makes sense. A lot of people stay in the closet with that stuff, especially if you grew up in a very religious household too. In 2022, the Stearns County Sheriff Office released a collage of 28 men from Josh's computer, asking the public to help identify them. This was in conjunction with a Unsolved Mysteries episode that came out on Netflix too.
The photo release came deliberately timed with the Netflix drop of Unsolved Mysteries, with an episode focused on Josh Guimond.
Joshua Guimond vanished.
In 2010, the Fox 9 investigators examined Josh's hard drive and discovered
he did a search at 6:42
that somebody had run an internet washer several days after Josh's disappearance, a discovery that became a key part of the Unsolved Mysteries story. Those pictures were still on the hard drive, some of them specifically from a Yahoo chat room.
Essentially, this secret life led to the next theory, or they're like a connected theory. Either something happened when he met someone, or this online thing, the next theory is he was abducted. Based on the Yahoo Personals and the 28 mystery men from his computer, investigators think that he may have been abducted as in for trafficking purposes. This theory could work, but Josh's father questions how he was dressed for this, because he didn't bring a jacket and it was November, he wasn't too far away, just on foot. So if he was planning to meet up with someone, wouldn't he have dressed properly or carried more with him? That's sort of his father's thoughts on it. Now, the next theory, and this is a big one that a lot of people kind of go down the path with as well, and this is the one that has a lot of misinformation, that the roommate Nick is the one who did it. Josh and Nick were best friends, and the night before, witnesses said that they overheard an argument between them, reportedly about, or at least partly about, Katie. Katie was Josh's ex, and they dated for 4.5 years. However, Katie and Nick were in a stage of starting a relationship together. So essentially, his best friend started dating his ex-girlfriend. On the night that Josh vanished, Katie says that Nick left her place around 1 to 1:30 a.m. Keycard records show Nick re-entering the dorm at 2:42 a.m. That leaves roughly an hour or more that isn't tightly accounted for. However, keep in mind that Josh went missing at 11:45 p.m. and now we're 1 a.m. and he didn't have a jacket and he didn't go back to his dorm. So this one doesn't really make sense to me. But anyways, Nick cooperated with investigators and he denied any involvement. He initially agreed to take a polygraph, then he backed out, saying that he didn't trust the test, which, yeah, they're really not to be trusted. But this made him look guilty in a lot of people's eyes. So that, with the timeline gap, it made him the center of suspicion. But again, the time doesn't really make sense based on what Josh brought with him to be out. And therefore, Nick would have to be, the timeline would have to start at midnight, but it started at 1 a.m. And then the whole thing with the missing data from the computer, a lot of people think that maybe Nick removed that, either to hide Josh's online activity or protect himself. Others also point out that we don't really know who ran the computer, who has access to it, because it had a sort of public physical access, so anyone could have logged into it. Where does everything stand right now? Josh's father has been openly critical of the investigation from the beginning. He believes that there was foul play and that the case was mishandled, especially regarding the Abbey and the computer.
Brian, we're at the 20th.
Answering questions for a podcast 20 years after his son's disappearance.
What do you think needs to happen for there to be hope that the case gets solved at this point?
Brian Guimond can't help but share his frustration.
Well, for that to happen, Stearns County has to do something, but I'm not expecting nothing from them.
In 2021, he sued for full access to the case file, but the court denied the request, pretty much saying that it would ruin the in-progress case. But at this point, we're talking like he's been missing for 20 years, you know? His dad just wants to see what's going on. In 2022, Josh's story reached a much wider audience through the Netflix Unsolved Mysteries episode, which was called What Happened to Josh. And the Simply Vanished podcast as well featured it.
Since the release of this montage of photos, October 21st, images found on Josh's computer, well, the case has new life, generating more tips in 2 weeks than they've had in 2 decades.
That renewed interest into it and led to more tips, and they also released the 28 pictures at that point. But the few people that they found in the pictures they got tips for were all cleared, and there's still no answers.
In 2014, an age progression photo was created to show what Josh would look like today.
Now, let's take a look at what Ashley says about this case. Now she's on TikTok and she's getting more bold.
I have a gift. I have the ability to read into minds, read into past events, and into the future.
So Ashley, she's getting more creative with this. I suspect it's because of the multi-part TikTok series style videos. Like that whole idea of doing multi-part went really viral, and that's what she built upon. She started copying it for all the cases that she covered over on TikTok. So we'll separate out Ashley's claims on this. Remember, this is not evidence. This is just the story that she has crafted in her mind to make it entertaining so she gets the views, really. So Ashley does her multi-part TikTok series on Josh's case. And like with a lot of her content, it reads more like a fanfic than an actual investigation. She tends to build these elaborate narratives that often revolve around someone being secretly gay or living a secret life, and then she frames that as the motive for murder. And yes, there is a secret gay component to this case, but there's some other cases that I don't cover in this, and she does talk about people being gay in a lot of those too, so I did cover a lot of cases in this video, but like, there was more. So in Josh's case, Ashley names his roommate as the person responsible for his death. She claims that the tarot in her visions told her. She says that Nick was secretly gay and hooking up with men while pretending to be a woman online, and supposedly was using Josh's computer to create these fake profiles to meet straight men on personal sites.
The mystery of the death of Josh Guimond. So Nick's motive was he did not want to be put out of school because he was caught doing something immoral, like hooking up with straight men, pretending to be a woman, using Josh's computer and Yahoo Personals to do immoral acts.
She says that Nick was cross-dressing in private and repeatedly was caught by Josh.
So he felt like his world was ending when Josh was fed up because he repeatedly did this. This wasn't the first incident. He repeatedly could not control himself, create profiles to date straight men.
According to Ashley, Josh was really fed up and was going to tell Nick's very conservative father all about it.
He felt like this could be the end of his world, that his dad would find out that he was gay. His dad was a person who was against that lifestyle, and he didn't want no smoke with his dad.
She says that Nick, terrified of being outed and kicked out of school, ended up taking Josh's life to protect his secret and his future. And this motive, she, like I said, repeats in other cases. I don't know if this case gave her the idea for it, but she likes this whole angle of being secretly gay, and she does use it further on.
So he felt like his world was ending. He wanted to finish school. He was a senior, so that's why he killed Josh. But Josh was just leaving. He was going to move out. But Nick was insecure about being gay and paranoid.
So that just came completely the f*** out of nowhere.
So in Ashley's version, the motive has nothing to do with the clergy scandal or a stranger from the internet. It's all about a closeted roommate, shame, and fear of being exposed to a strict religious parent. But the secret online persona posing as a woman and talking to men, it was part of the investigation. Except it was Josh, not his roommate. Josh was the one who was exploring his sexuality and most likely struggling with thoughts of being bisexual due to the nature of growing up in a very religious household. It tends to be a lot of Catholic guilt around that. What Ashley seems to have done is she took the existing theory from the case and she just swapped the roles of the best friends. States it as fact and says that Nick took Josh's life because of it. She skips over all the nuance of this whole thing. Like, Nick has already been questioned and scrutinized in real life, and there's been no charges laid, so clearly there's nothing there. It's been like 20 years. And because this is a 20-plus-year-old cold case, speculation is everywhere. From forums, podcasts, armchair detectives. In that environment, Ashley's version doesn't stand out as uniquely wild, except for one big thing. She states it as if she has solved it. She names a real person, assigns him a motive that reworks the existing theories to fit her narrative, and then she presents it as certainty, not speculation. And let me just put in a reminder of what the police think about psychics. This is one of many clips out there.
We would also say that you know your investigation is already off the rails. When you're dealing with psychics, October 24th, less than 48 hours after the abduction, there was a lot of contact with psychics in this case. They are right about precisely nothing.
So when we look at this case in the context of her escalating behavior, Josh's disappearance becomes an early example of the same pattern. She takes a real case and learns just enough of the existing theories to sound informed, and then she adds a sensational angle and then confidently accuses a real person based on tarot and her intuition. None of what she is saying has been proven in any court. Nick was never charged, and actually he went on to become a criminal prosecutor, and he still continues to try to find answers to this day of what happened to his best friend. This case had the Ashley fantasy of someone being secretly gay and having to commit homicide to hide it. Ashley's fantasy about someone being secretly gay, I've experienced and seen this before, and she brings it up so often that I wonder. However, it could be calculating, and she's doing it just for the clicks because it's, sensational. But up until this point with Josh, Ashley has not been held accountable still for her wild stories and lies. And this is mainly due to the fact, like I said, she was covering solved cases, and now with Josh, now she's doing a cold case. She's kind of dipping into something that's unsolved. In my opinion, I believe that she was trying to jump on the algorithm to get her name out there more, because Josh's case showed up in the news in 2022 because of the Unsolved Mysteries episode on Netflix. This is why I do see her more as calculating, and I do think that might be the case. Now, the second case that kind of came up during this time is Takeoff the rapper. Kirsnick Kari Ball, better known by his rapper name, Takeoff, was behind a popular rap group in the 2010s called the Migos. Takeoff was born June 8, 1994 in Georgia and grew up in a small house just outside of Atlanta. Raised by his mother alongside his uncle Quavo and cousin Offset. While they considered each other family and were raised together, Offset revealed in a 2023 interview with Variety that he was not biologically related to Quavo and Takeoff. But regardless, the three of them basically grew up like brothers, and they were involved in Atlanta's rap scene long before anyone knew them as Migos. Takeoff was locked into music early on. By middle school, he was able to jump right into music, and his passion led to the three of them forming their first rap group. They first used the name The Polo Club, but later renamed it to Migos. They ended up finding a lot of success in Atlanta, and it grew from there. Publicly, Takeoff was always seen as the quiet one, laid back, not flashy. But other artists and producers described him as one of the sharpest in the room. Precise, consistent, and crucial to the Migos sound of smooth flow and signature ad-libs. Takeoff released a solo album called The Last Rocket in 2018.
Do it. Get that bag. Come on.
In 2022, he started a joint project with Quavo called Only Built for Infinity Links. Even though Takeoff could have chased the spotlight, he really didn't. He liked to stay a little bit more low-key. He was, at his core, a soft-spoken studio workhorse from the Atlanta suburbs. A family-oriented, low-drama artist who helped reshape modern rap while rarely needing to be the loudest voice in the room.
What do you want people to remember about him?
Coolest guy on the planet. Freshest guy. He don't like nothing to
bother you. It really bothers him, but he don't show it to the people. And I just think he's the greatest person, the greatest rapper to ever live. And that's my nephew. I'm gonna make sure his legacy is always uplifted. I just think he one of the greatest people I ever been around.
So, what happened to him? On November 1st, 2022, Takeoff was outside a Houston bowling alley. There was a nearby dice game where a dispute reportedly broke out.
Everyone spoke of what a great young man this is.
During a press conference Tuesday afternoon, Houston police confirmed rapper Takeoff was shot and killed in front of a group of 40 people outside a private party at a bowling alley in Houston, Texas.
He wasn't involved, but he was collateral damage, merely for being nearby physically. He was not the target, even. He sadly did not survive, and 2 other people were injured but did survive. Now, this whole scene that went down, it was actually heavily filmed. People pulled out their phone upon seeing the group, and there was security cameras as well everywhere. So there's plenty of evidence of what happened. Everyone knows exactly what happened.
We were able to deduce that Patrick Clark is a lethal in the case. That's why he's charged, what the Houston Police Department said. Using ballistic reports, surveillance footage, and forensic evidence, police built their case against Clark.
Houston police later arrested the suspected assailant, and he was charged with homicide. A trial is still in progress right now. It's had 2 or 3 years of delays, and it still hasn't happened. Takeoff's death is widely remembered as a senseless loss of one of hip-hop's most laid-back and talented artists. Sadly, someone who was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Let's talk about what Ashley said about this case. With this case, Ashley, again, she makes multiple videos on this.
She actually made over 17 TikToks about this case, and it's accumulated to hundreds of thousands of views off the death of an innocent. It's just disgusting. Just looking at this man, I am absolutely appalled.
Creating a narrative where she insists that this whole thing was a hit or planned out. Takeoff was never the intended target, and the whole crime's on video. People can see what has happened, and they weren't even aiming at him or anything. It was like a stray bullet, This is where she starts showing the future psychic that she will become. Ashley would go on to say that Offset, the cousin, was the one who arranged it, but then in another video, I think she said that he's the one who actually pulled the trigger.
Offset ordered the that killed Takeoff and then went to his funeral because it's all a part of the strategy.
She said that he did this essentially out of jealousy. Even though there's video evidence, she was trying to say that Offset was holding the weapon too. It didn't make any sense. And it's clear Takeoff wasn't even the intended target. Ashley, she did do some earlier random psychic speculating on non-criminal gossip on a couple rappers as well as on her YouTube, but it's nothing to this level. So she starts getting real creative over on TikTok. And Ashley's audience is just as guilty. They validated everything that she was saying, and they were encouraging her the whole time.
The comments. How do you know about all of this? Miss, if you knew so much, why didn't you warn him? His family needs to hold you responsible for not saving his life.
This is an example of why people need to be more discerning. They can feed an ego and be part of the problem that causes a ton of damage in the future to other people. And in classic Ashley fashion, she turns this whole story into essentially a fanfic with a bunch of twists and turns that make no sense.
She brought in Cardi B into this situation?
So before Offset went to the bank of Cardi B asking for more money or quote-unquote security, he had already planned the murder with J. Prince Jr., his partner. He was very open with J. Prince Jr. It looks like he could be himself with him. They may be good partners. But he has to pay him for him to do it. Although they had already went over details on how it was going to be executed, they had to put it on pause because Offset didn't have the money for it. So the first plan to kill one of the Migos ended up being canceled due to financial difficulties. Offset couldn't afford it, and Cardi wasn't paying for it. When Cardi told him no, she gave him advice. She was just trying to leading him down the right path and trying to help him understand that she needed to pay for, provide for the family. But it seems that she was a little scared of him.
You know, I genuinely sometimes watch something and think, how do I even contribute to this? How do I even put my opinion into this without just not wanting to, remove my ears, pretty much? I just cannot believe that this is a thing, but also I cannot believe that when you listen to this person, she seemingly believes everything that she says. I think that's what makes this even more nutty.
In my opinion, I think that she realized getting involved in a current crime gets more views, because that's sort of what she did here. She was going after stuff that was current in the news and she'd hop on it. And this is why she started looking for more active cases versus older solved or cold cases. All right, so these are the two cases that we know of from her TikTok beginnings. But now we're going to move into like the major big story that sort of ended her career. The Idaho 4 tragedy.
4 students and close friends found dead inside this home. The friends seen together in this picture posted just hours before their murders.
Ashley would make what you might call her big break in the most vile way possible, using the Idaho 4 case as a way to gain notoriety.
And here's what I uncovered regarding the murder of the 4 University of Idaho students.
This is a very sad case where 4 Idaho University students' lives were senselessly cut short by a sadistic young man. For this case, not only does it have multiple actual victims who have passed away, but also victims of people who were hurt by Ashley's lies. So we will be talking about this case in more detail, and I will say the assailant's name as I think it's pertinent to Ashley's psychic claims and then the claims of innocence of the Professor Rebecca Scofield as well. So I need to delve deeper into this one than the other ones mentioned, mainly because this is the key event that brought us to the downfall of Ashley Guillard. But I still won't be discussing the so-called gruesome details of what happened because I just don't really think it's necessary. We're going to begin by talking about the victims first. The Idaho 4 is named such because of the brutal homicide of 4 University of Idaho students on November 13th, 2022 in Moscow, Idaho. This case shocked the small college town and attracted national attention due to its brutality and the youth of the victims, and the long search for answers and justice as well. The victims were Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Now let me tell you a little bit more about each of the victims. Kaylee Gonzalez, 21. Kaylee Gonzalez was a vibrant, adventurous young woman known for her loving nature and for her incredibly close bond with her lifelong best friend, Madison Mogen.
I think that they had a very amazing relationship, the epitome of true best friends from very early. I mean, they were sisters through and through.
They were completely inseparable.
As a senior at the University of Idaho, majoring in general studies, she was driven and full of plans, preparing to move and start a new job after graduation. Friends and family remember her for her warmth, kindness, and joyful spirit, and for the way that she left a lasting impact on everyone who knew her.
The memories that we shared, we don't do it lightly because they are very private memories, and sometimes it feels like I'm giving away a part of them. But I do it for the importance to realize how great of a loss it is.
She embodied her own sunshine, and that's when her skies became limitless.
Madison Mogen, 21. Madison Maddie Mogen was cherished for her infectious laughter, kindness, and unwavering loyalty, and for the positivity that she brought into the lives of her family and friends, especially her close bond with Kaylee Gonzalez. A marketing major, she was passionate about her studies and deeply loved in her community, where her warmth and compassion became a source of strength for many people.
She was the best child I could have asked for.
It's about memories, and it's always about hugs and appreciation. She just had that genuine love.
Maddie was the best at spreading love.
Let's start a foundation in the girl's honor.
And to have something to put your heart into positively, there are no words.
Xana Kernodle, 20. Xana Kernodle was a spirited, outgoing, and athletic young woman known for her warmth, strength, and resilience. She was studying marketing at the University of Idaho while also working at a local restaurant, balancing school and work like so many students do. One thing that I will mention is she was a fighter, and according to the autopsy reports, she fought very hard during the attack, showing the same courage that people saw in her every single day.
She would want us to talk about the life that she lived and to be her voice right now.
She just was always fun. She was uplifting, and she took any bad situation and turned it into a good one.
Jeff, what did you love most about your daughter?
Everything. She cared about people. She cared about her friends just as much as like her family.
Xana was amazing. She lit up a room. She had a way of making everybody around her feel important and special.
She was in a loving relationship with Ethan Chapin, and together they were remembered as caring, fun, and deeply connected.
The sweetest kid ever. They were just two happy people, and they're just seeing the videos and photos of them. You can just tell how happy they are. They were just amazing together.
Xana was the funniest person I knew and made me laugh every time I spent time with her. Xana, you will not be forgotten. You have impacted so many lives and have given people so much love.
Ethan Chapin, 20. Ethan Chapin, one of a set of triplets, was a vibrant, kind, and gentle soul with a great sense of humor. A freshman majoring in recreation, sport, and tourism management, he was deeply loved by his family and friends who remember him for his easygoing warmth and caring nature. He shared a close and loving relationship with Xana Kernodle, and that connection, along with the bonds he built with the people around him, really defined the meaningful, grounded life he was building before it was taken away.
Ethan was always someone you could count on to make you smile and cheer up your mood. And I feel so lucky to have shared so many great memories with him.
Minions, tonight we steal the moon!
For Ethan's parents, Stacy and Jim Chapin, one way of coping involves creating a foundation. Ethan's Smile.
Ethan just had a great smile. I mean, he smiled all the time.
Raising money for scholarships by selling tulips planted in honor of Ethan, who had worked at a tulip farm.
So Ethan will live on through the foundation. That's what motivates us to do this.
These 4 students embodied promise, joy, and love, leaving behind cherished memories and an enduring legacy within their community and families.
There are 4 very, very important names in this case. Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. And if you're going to remember any names from this case, I ask that it be all 4.
And those highlight the victims and the families of the Idaho 4 tragedy. Let's get into what happened. To summarize what happened that night, I will be utilizing a 3D model from this YouTuber. The name is up in the top right-hand corner. She made this model for Dateline and other shows, and they've barely used any of it. She has way more detail. She has source material. Go check out the whole thing after, because I am just taking out little chunks. On November 13th, 2022 at 4 a.m., Brian Koberger entered the home of these Idaho college students. The whole house was settling after returning from a night out. Best friends Madison and Kaylee fell asleep together on the 3rd floor. Xana, still hungry from the night, ordered some DoorDash. There was another roommate on the other side of the 2nd floor and another roommate down in the basement. They were both female.
As most of them all sleep, Koberger pulled into the neighborhood for the first time. We know this due to a home security camera and records the coming and going of anybody that enters that neighborhood. but there is a second camera located behind the apartment complex building.
Xana's DoorDash arrives. She grabs it and takes it up to her room to eat it while she is scrolling on TikTok, and her boyfriend Ethan is sleeping beside her. We know the activities that Xana did that night because it's all in her phone. Brian, making a third pass now through the neighborhood, heads back into the residence to check to see if they've gone to bed yet. Xana did turn off the lights after she picked up her DoorDash.
Camera B records the time of 4:07.
This is one of many steps where they know that he did this premeditated, as he knew where to park in the back and he was planning to sneak into their backyard to go through the sliding door. So he would have cased the house ahead of time. So he goes into the back and he just looks around, and once the coast is clear, then he heads in through the trees.
At approximately 4:13 a.m., he begins to make entry.
Kohberger, dressed in black and masked, first attacked Kaylee and Madison. From this attack, he accidentally left behind the tan knife sheath, which contained DNA evidence and was a key piece of evidence the prosecution had to win the case against Brian Kohberger. Xana, who was still awake after receiving her food delivery, actually encountered Brian as he came downstairs, and he fatally attacked her as she ran to her boyfriend. Kohberger then attacked Ethan while he was sleeping, taking his life. One of the surviving roommates saw Brian in the hallway but was not attacked. Her fight, flight, or freeze kicked in, and she froze in fear, staying in her room for some time before going to the basement to be with the other roommate. I'm not going to dig into every detail on this because the roommates took a lot of unfair hate afterwards, and they are survivors with their own trauma now. What matters is that this particular roommate on the second floor, she did have a description of Brian that matched him, and her witness testimony was another crucial second pillar of the case against Brian, and it was extremely important for the prosecution. So in the morning, 911 was called for an unconscious person. The police arrived and began their investigation, which after some time led them to Brian Kohberger. Like I said earlier, I didn't want to pile onto any hate and harassment that the roommates received. However, when I started looking at victim impact statements, I do want to add an aspect to this. The public attacked the roommates for not calling 911 fast enough. People forget that these are still young kids. They were out drinking that night. Everyone reacts differently in moments of stress. And they end up calling their friend Hunter, who came, other friends too came to help, and then Hunter's the one who made the 911 call in the end. I just want to, put it in this video just to make sure everyone knows. All the autopsies showed that even if a paramedic was standing outside the door, there'd be no way that they could have saved these kids. So it didn't matter what time they made the 911 call at. Wrapping this up into people like Ashley who make false accusations, I want to include a part of the clip from the victim impact statement of one of the roommates of their life and what it was like with the whole internet and the whole world hating them. And in watching this clip, I want you to think about, because we'll get to, Ashley ropes in Kaylee's ex, Jack, saying that he took part in this. And then she also ropes in the professor, Rebecca. Look at the emotion that the roommate experienced. See how this affects her. And then imagine what Jack and Rebecca have been going through. Because Rebecca and Jack also face harassment and people online attacking them because of Ashley. Not just psychics, but this applies to ghost hunters, true crime YouTubers, even professional documentarians that make documentaries for Netflix. They do damage to people by spreading this misinformation. And Jack, Rebecca, and these two roommates were all being harassed, where the two roommates are survivors. Jack is also grieving his ex, like they were together for a while, like they're still friends. They share custody of their dog and everything. And Rebecca, this just hit her out of nowhere. She had nothing to do with these kids. She didn't even know them. And her whole life changed. And she has kids and everything too. And people were showing up at her house to harass her and do a bunch of stuff. Like, imagine how she felt about the safety of her kids. These four people were all being harassed because of Ashley, the psychic detective, and the true crime sleuths on like Reddit and stuff, and true crime content creators as well, putting out theories and ideas. This leads to fire starting and then people gang up on people in the real world. And that's sort of what I want to feature when I do more of these kind of videos in the next year. In this case, is a good example of how the internet pushed all these people too far and ruined lives.
While I was still in shock, trying to process the fact that my friends were truly gone, I had been attacked by the public. I was grieving, numb, and unsure of what had happened was even real. And at the same time, I was getting flooded with death threats and hateful messages from people who did not know me at all or know the dynamic of our friendship. Social media made it so much worse, and strangers made up stories to entertain themselves. The media harassed not just me, but also my family. People showed up at our house. They called my phone, my parents' phones, other family members' phones, and we were chased while I was still trying to survive emotionally and grieve the loss of my friends. For the longest time, I could not even look at their families without feeling sick with guilt. I was always scared that the media would try to catch me at any moment of any day, even when I was just walking around my house. I made my parents close all the blinds during the day so no one could see me even in the slightest chance. I barely left the house, and when I did, I made sure I was never alone. I have not slept through a single night since this happened. I constantly wake up in panics, terrified. For a long time, I could barely get out of bed, but one day I realized I have to live for them.
It did take about 6 weeks for them to figure out it was Brian. So during the 6 weeks, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of hate, a lot of fear. Of course, some of these rumors and theories came from Ashley and her psychic visions. It's important that we remember the case is solved. It's not a mystery. No matter how much Ashley wants to say that there's new evidence and new stuff going to come to light, it's just not the case. Now, just to touch on who Brian Kohberger is a little bit more, obviously he's the perpetrator, as many people already know. He was a criminology PhD student at the neighboring Washington State University. He was arrested and charged with 4 counts of first-degree homicide and 1 count of burglary in his role in brutally taking the lives of these 4 students. The case against him was built on pretty good hard evidence. There was DNA on a knife sheath left at the scene. Obviously, that was a key part. Then there was surveillance footage showing his car circling the house multiple times, which you would have seen in the reenactment video that I showed you. As well, they had cell phone data tracking his movements, including that his phone was turned off during the window of the homicides, which strongly suggested premeditation because it wasn't typical of him to turn off his phone randomly for 9 hours. Now, recently, this case was sort of resolved. I was actually planning to make this video after the trial, but Brian, I guess he saw all the evidence and everything, and he decided to just plead guilty instead of taking it to trial. At first, he was planning to take it to trial, but I think with DNA evidence and everything, I think he just kind of realized that he should just do a plea deal. So on July 2nd, 2025, Kohberger took his plea deal. He pled guilty to all charges, avoiding the death penalty, and was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus an additional 10 years for the burglary. He waived his right to appeal and declined to make a statement at sentencing as well. To this day, there's still no confirmed motive or clear personal connection between him and the victims. Authorities describe the attack as planned, targeted, and unprovoked. But I mean, when you look into the details of him and the reports of people that worked with him in the university and everything, it kind of seemed like he was just maybe, in my opinion, a sociopath or a psychopath, and he was really curious about her and wanted to see if he could do it, what it would feel like, and if he could get away with it. Like, to be honest, that's pretty much my opinion of what I see of all the evidence that came in, all the anecdotes about him. Now that we reviewed a general overview of what happened, there's obviously a lot more detail to this case, and we're going to touch on different parts of the case details as we go into Ashley's psychic visions. So let's talk about Ashley's role. Ashley enters the Idaho 4 case. Big disclaimer up front. Everything in Ashley Guillard's visions is literally fiction. Police, the university, and now a federal judge have all said that her claims are false. When the news was buzzing with the speculations of what happened that night in Moscow, Idaho, Ashley basically saw her moment and sprinted towards it. While police were still investigating and no suspect had been named yet, she started posting TikToks claiming her tarot readings had already solved the case. Ashley claimed that she did a spiritual investigation using tarot, intuition, and what she called her spiritual brain. She later put this exact language into her court filings when she gets sued, which we'll talk about, saying that she used her spiritual brain, intuition, spiritual practice, and investigative skills to uncover the truth regarding the homicides of the 4 University of Idaho students. The story Ashley invented goes something along the lines of this. Keep in mind, she made like a lot of TikToks, there's a lot of videos of this, so the story gets convoluted, but I'm going to give you a general idea. So the cards allegedly pointed her to a teacher did it, and then they narrowed it down to something to do with history. So Ashley went to the University of Idaho's website and clicked on the history department page. She saw that Professor Rebecca Scofield was like head of the department, and then she said she just knew that was who her tarot was pointing at.
The spirit said there was a teacher involved, so the reading I did alluded to a teacher. And it was ironic to me because it was the same card that was used when I was doing a reading on a Tiffany Valiante commenter. A teacher commented and was talking crazy, and I was like, who is this person and why is she commenting? And it alluded, that same card came out, so I'm like, let me clarify this. So then when I clarified it, history came out, and one of the cards just kept saying history, 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 history. So I looked up the University of Idaho History Department, and Rebecca Scofield was on there. She's the first on the page.
From that moment on, Ashley treated Scofield as the villain in her personal narrative. But who is Rebecca Scofield? Let's talk about her and highlight the good things about her and she is a good person, just to try to ease some of the misinformation that Ashley has spread out there. Professor Rebecca Scofield. Professor Rebecca Scofield is, at her core, a historian of the American West in queer history, and she's the chair of the history department at the University of Idaho. Rebecca grew up on a cattle ranch near Boise, which pretty much sets the tone for all the work that she does now.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. It means so much to be able to talk to people about my research and sort of share what I've learned over the last about 10 years. So I'd like to first thank the Autry for allowing me to do this program.
Rebecca Scofield is an assistant professor of American history at the University of Idaho. Most of her interest in teaching lies in the American West, gender history, LGBTQ topics, and pop culture.
Rebecca studied history at Willamette University, then went to Harvard for a master's in Japanese studies and a PhD in American studies. She did all this before joining the University of Idaho and eventually becoming the associate professor and department chair. Her teachings and research focus on modern and historical Western U.S. history, gender and sexuality, queer and labor histories, and the lives of rural and working class communities, especially in ranching and rodeo spaces. Yes, it's a big, long, all in one breath to explain this. So she looks at rodeo and gay rodeo as spaces where race, class, gender, and sexuality would collide, and then rewrite the idea of what the real cowboy is, especially through LGBTQ stories and the community during the HIV/AIDS crisis.
Her first book, published in 2019, examines how incarcerated men and gay-identified men contributed and cemented the popularity of the rodeo scene. She actually has done a lot of LGBTQ advocacy, including being the principal investigator for the Gay Roses Oral History Project, and co-creator of the web exhibit Voices of the Gay Rodeo.
More recently, Rebecca has been looking at images of women riding everything from horses to bikes to dragons, and what those say about power, freedom, and who gets to be visible in culture. Outside the classroom, she gives talks and interviews about how Western myths still shape ideas about masculinity, queerness, and rural identity. Rebecca is essentially a ranch-raised historian of the American West who is trying to question the norms and work outside the box when it comes to American history. But Most importantly, she had never met these 4 students. And she was in Portland, Oregon with her husband the night of the attack. And just to show you the level of crazy that Ashley was at, she actually did a TikTok where she doxes Rebecca, posts all her contact information, everything about her. I believe it's the school information, but still, it encourages people to show up and get violent with her because Rebecca was already getting threats.
This is the teacher who potentially had the 4 Idaho students.
Things got so out of hand that it started affecting the actual police investigation. The cops haven't found any suspects yet, but they were being bombarded with calls from Ashley's followers demanding they arrest the college professor.
For weeks, investigators have been combating a lot of misinformation on this case, but they say this claim that this professor is somehow involved in the murder is perhaps the most high profile, as it has been shared online millions of times.
And the Moscow Police Department has formally cleared her as a suspect.
In the 6 weeks following, police have yet to publicly identify any suspects, but now they are trying to clear up speculation around one person, a University of Idaho professor, Rebecca Scofield, the police saying at this time in the investigation, they do not believe she's involved in the crime. It's just another example of the police responding to the tremendous amount of misinformation surrounding this case. They even have a rumor control section of their website.
I think rumors always hurt us in an investigation, but it's our job to go back and utilize our resources and to continue to vet those.
So that right there just explains she has nothing to do with this, but Ashley doesn't care. The story Ashley built. Ashley obviously made a ton of videos. I believe it's like hundreds of videos. But I just want to show you a couple from the very beginning when she was first starting and just how wrong all these are. So in this video, she's saying that there are 2 perpetrators and they were a couple, they broke up, and then one of them propositioned the person to then do this crime. It makes no sense.
One of the killers was broken up with, and then that killer propositioned the one to carry out the murder. You do this, I give you that.
And this next video, she pretty much uses Barnum statements for one of the perpetrators, and then the other perpetrator she now is saying is that couple. So now we have 3 perpetrators.
To identify the 4 University of Idaho college students, they're looking for somebody with stamina, strength, young, a student, relentless determination, someone who went through difficulties, either lost their roommate or residence, dorm room, or a resident job or something like that. Someone who felt despair over this loss, irritated, unhappy with how things were handled. For the other killer, you're looking for a couple. Somebody was in a relationship and that relationship broke up.
All right, this next one, the YouTuber I found this video from, his reaction, I think, says enough.
That orchestrated the saw Kaylee in the breakup as a problem.
So now in her story, in her fabricated dumb as hell story, she has somehow figured out that instead of it being a couple, okay, what she told us earlier on, that there was 2 killers and that one of them hired a hit to kill the other one. Now we're down to 1 killer, and
those are just a few examples because I want everyone to understand just she's making stuff up off the top of her head during this whole thing. Once Ashley decided that Scofield was the one, she didn't stop at vague accusation. She built out an entire plot line, basically like a true crime fanfic, and presented it as fact. Now, add to our little notes as well. Remember, Ashley was an author and did write a lot. And I do think that this is an important aspect to keep in mind, like I said earlier, when covering all psychics, because this is a recurring theme that I have noticed. So what is the story that Ashley created about Rebecca? It pretty much started with this: an alleged secret affair. Ashley repeatedly claimed that Rebecca Scofield had a secret same-sex affair with one of the students whose lives was taken, Kaylee.
Who is Rebecca Scofield, part 2. So I asked the spirit, how did Rebecca Scofield and Kaylee meet? Rebecca Scofield and Kaylee connected because she needed an advisor. So initially they met on an advisor-mentor basis. So then as the relationship progressed, Rebecca Scofield starts dropping cues about her interest in Kaylee, about her books, being primarily about LGBTQ, just planting seeds in her head, just letting her know she's interested in her and also letting her know about her sexuality so that she can experience the side of her that she's silent. She wrote a lot of books and literature and spoke on the LGBTQ community, but she had never wrote her own. She never lived her own story. She never wrote her story, and she wanted Kaylee to be a part of that. And Kaylee liked it. She agreed to the idea, and so this experience began.
In one TikTok cited in the legal record of the lawsuit that we'll talk about, Ashley said, quote, Rebecca Scofield was being a sugar mama to Kaylee, giving her money. Kaylee saw this as an opportunity to get ahead. Ashley claimed that Scofield was terrified that the supposed relationship would be exposed, and she was worried that she would lose her job, her marriage, and her reputation. And then Ashley says that this fear became the motive for taking Kaylee's life.
Rebecca feels threatened. She feels that Kaylee is going to tell on her. So she decides to concoct or come up with a plan to have Kaylee killed.
So she felt she had to kill to keep the secret. From there, Ashley's narrative is that Scofield needed to eliminate the witnesses. In Ashley's words, from her own filings, Scofield initiated the planned, ordered, and executed the homicides of the 4 university students of Idaho. So her tarot didn't just suggest someone was close to the victims. It allegedly identified a closeted professor in a secret affair who then arranged for hire plot to keep it all quiet. The thing is, this was essentially the plot for the TV show How to Get Away with Murder.
Incredibly stupid storyline of hers is literally the plot of the first season of How to Get Away with Murder.
Just the TV show didn't have the gay twist. Ashley added that in. So Ashley wasn't even really being unique with her own story either. She just kind of stole the story of that TV show, to be honest. Then Ashley starts bringing in the co-conspirators. Ashley's story pulls in more real people. Ashley would say that Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, Jack DeCoeur, was hired by Rebecca to essentially carry out the homicides. Ashley's got a new video about the Idaho 4 on her channel, but it really goes off the rail with some very inappropriate graphic stuff that isn't fair to the victims or their surviving family and friends. I'm not going to show those parts, but I will line up some clips to highlight how her story changes over time. If you want, you can go check out her video yourself. Just be aware, trigger warning, it gets inappropriate.
And she hired Jack DeCoeur. That's when she stopped stalking them as much and she used him as a tool. As people think, oh, he did this because he was jealous of Madison and Kaylee. Actually, it was Rebecca who was jealous of Madison, Rebecca Scofield.
But in her retelling, it's not about jealousy. It's about Rebecca worried about being outed.
Rebecca feels threatened. She feels that Kaylee is going to tell on her. So she decides to concoct or come up with a plan to have Kaylee killed.
And in this clip, she's talking about Jack's motives.
Jack wasn't mad at Kaylee or Madison. Jack just wanted the money.
And in her retelling, it turns out Jack wanted to do this not just for the money, but he was angry with Kaylee.
So when Brian Kohlberg came into the picture, Rebecca's like, get the help. And he's like, it's not an equal exchange. That's when she finally understood that, oh, this isn't just murder for hire. This means something to him.
Later, she tried to adjust her story and narrative to fit Brian in there, claiming that Scofield somehow connected with him, framed him by planting evidence at the scene, and she said that Jack was there supervising him to make sure that he would take out all of the people. It made no sense. In her retelling that she did on her YouTube, it gets even more convoluted. Like, Jack took out some people, Brian showed back up again, they were fighting. Like, it's like a soap opera. It's totally a fanfic, and it's just from her imagination. Now, I could go on a rant about what she's doing to Jack, dragging his name into it too, just like Rebecca. I feel like I've already done some of these rants, but I really like iNabber, what he has to say about the Jack situation, so I'm going to throw that in here.
I mean, taking a look at the fact that Jack DeCoeur has actually been cleared of the murder. The police chief said in the following news conference on November 20, 2022, everything that we have taken from those calls, we have followed up on, we have cleared, and we believe there is no connection there. This person was cleared of any wrongdoing or even suspicion, and Jake is a massive part of this person's theory, because Jake was actually in a 9-year relationship with Kaylee. This dude just probably lost the love of his life, and now he's being falsely accused of the most heinous, horrific thing possible. Just how devastating this must be for him, to have his name and reputation dragged through the mud, having to deal with the stress of, the crime itself, but now having to deal with this. It's just horrific.
This whole story twists and turns a lot. It started from the beginning where her original things that she said obviously didn't come true. Then she adjusted her story to match what was showing up in the news. And she went all over the place with this stuff. I believe there's even a story where Jack also did it because he wanted the dog back, but they were like sharing the dog. They didn't have any aggression towards one another. So I don't know. Anyway, that's just a little side thing, but obviously I can't include everything in this video. I have a lot of other stuff in this video too, but you guys can check out a few other videos if you want to see more. This YouTuber, Sherilyn Dale, she actually did a video. It's an hour long. She has a lot of the clips in it, and I'm just finding it now when I'm editing. So I will recommend that you guys go check that out if you want to see more of the clips. But if I included everything she has here, that's going to add like another half hour onto this video, and that's going to be insane. So in Ashley's version, this isn't one perpetrator acting alone. It's a multi-person conspiracy with Scofield at the top, a student accomplice, the ex-boyfriend, and eventually a claim that Kohberger was set up as a fall guy. About the evidence, though. Ashley then goes on to try to tie evidence from the case to solidify her claims in her narrative. She latched onto two very public pieces of real evidence. One is the white Hyundai Elantra police were searching for early in the investigation. And then the knife sheath left at the scene was ultimately tied to Kohberger's DNA. She claimed that the tarot card showed her that Scofield had access to a white Elantra, drove it to the house herself the night of the attack to, quote, ensure the execution of the students, and then orchestrated things so that Kohberger would be framed, including the idea that the knife sheath was planted. And just to underline how unserious Ashley's stuff is, some of the hits that Ashley would have, like she'd be like, look, I was right. It was actually just things that were already reported in the news. Like talking about Scofield having a white car after the white car became headline news. It's very easy to debunk Ashley, but her audience wasn't always fact-checking in real time. Ashley knew this, and other psychics also use this too, like Sylvia Brown, which I highlighted in my video, how before the internet, Sylvia would order medical journals. She would know what new vaccines and new discoveries have happened, and because vaccines take like 5-10 years or whatever to come out, she would then predict it the year before it's coming out. And then people would say, oh, look, she was right. But all she did was read a medical journal that most people didn't read. So like this is a lot of psychics do this. You've got to really pay attention, because the ones that are trying to do true crime, they're like so invested in the case that they will read everything as soon as it comes out. They'll do like news alerts and everything. So it's on us as consumers of whatever information to question these things. And also remember, during this whole thing with Ashley, her tone wasn't this is alleged or I believe or what if. Her tone for all these accusations, she said, this is what happened. She was matter of fact that this is what happened, opening herself up to huge defamation, which does happen. But yeah, she just would not budge from it. The most important part for the defamation is the way that she presented it all. Ashley didn't talk like she was speculating. She talked like she was delivering the truth. So saying things like, Rebecca was the one to initiate the plan. Another quote too, that she would say, Rebecca Scofield isn't remorseful for ordering the hit of the 4 students. Another one that she said too, Rebecca Scofield is going to prison for the death of the 4 University of Idaho students, whether you like it or not.
Rebecca Scofield is going to prison, whether you like it or not.
Ashley's fans didn't just bug Rebecca. They also contacted the families of the victims, trying to convince them that Ashley had solved the case and Rebecca was guilty.
So if we boil down Ashley's tarot story, it's pretty much like this. Secret affair leads to jealous professor, and then a murder for hire conspiracy, white Elantra, planted knife sheath, frame Brian Koberger. That's pretty much the layout of her story. The police, the university, and a federal court have all said there's no evidence that Rebecca is involved in this at all. Rebecca was cleared. She has an alibi. She wasn't even around, and she didn't even know these students. She never met them. And yes, while we can chuckle at Ashley at how ridiculous all of her statements are, we also have to remember that there were real people being hurt by all this. And everything with Rebecca eventually came to a head and led to Ashley's legal troubles.
These videos were going viral, being viewed and liked and commented millions of times. This was no longer a ridiculous conspiracy theory. Ashley's videos began to ruin Rebecca's life. Rebecca tried everything to stop this madness. She sent several cease and desist letters asking Ashley to take down the videos and stop making them for good. But they were all ignored. Instead of stopping, Ashley doubled down.
If I could put this demand letter Rebecca Scofield attorney sent me back tissue so I can wipe my with it.
This left Professor Rebecca with only one option. She was going to sue the TikTok psychic.
Reality pushes back. While Ashley was building this narrative online, real-world facts were moving in the opposite direction.
A strange development in the unsolved murders of 4 University of Idaho students. A professor at the school is now suing a TikTok creator for defamation. She says that creator has accused her of being involved in the killings. The lawsuit says the creator has published dozens of videos tarnishing the professor's reputation.
Tonight, a TikTok creator facing a defamation lawsuit surrounding the unsolved murders in Moscow, Idaho.
Oh my God. Rebecca is suing me.
Rebecca Scofield, a University of Idaho professor, is suing TikTok creator Ashley Guillard.
I'm not stopping, so let's just start there.
Alleging Guillard has wrongfully accused her of ordering the killings of 4 University of Idaho students last month.
Understandably, Rebecca couldn't just let this go. Like, she had to do something about it because this whole thing was so viral. And people were in Ashley's comments believing her, feeding into the delusion of Ashley or even just other people in the comments.
Then you've got other comments such as this. And yeah, there are a lot of hate-related comments, but there are also comments of just people praising, sending love, and I'm like, guys, what is there to enjoy about this? Do you just enjoy profiteering off individuals and going around spreading false accusations, and only, ruining the lives of other people out there, but also ruining the lives, or at least upsetting actual victims' family members? Do you get off to this stuff? Like, why are you all loving and enjoying this? TikTok is genuinely a sick, weird, messed up place, and I think the true crime genre in general, at this point of time, ladies and gentlemen, I think we just need to kind of shut this thing down and say, it's gone too far, boys. The science experiment's got to end now. Let's just say, au revoir, goodbye, peace out.
So you can imagine what this is doing to Rebecca's life. So, in December 2022, Rebecca's lawyer sent Ashley a cease and desist. There's multiple ones that followed as well. The cease and desist told Ashley that the claims are false and demanded that she remove her videos.
I have to put this demand letter Rebecca Scofield attorney sent me back tissue so I can wipe my with it.
In that video, she said that she had made no false statements, refused to take anything down, and basically told Scofield and her attorney to kiss her butt and file something in court if they had a problem with her. Rebecca did that. She took it to court. So at the end of December, it was December 21st, 22nd, 2022, she filed a federal defamation lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the District of Idaho. Rebecca Scofield versus Ashley Guillard. The complaint states, Ashley posted over 100 videos accusing Scofield of an affair with a student and orchestrating or ordering the homicides. The filing goes on to say those statements were false. Those videos have damaged Rebecca Scofield's reputation, causing severe emotional distress, and has created safety concerns for her and her family. Like I said, there's people that believe this stuff. There's still people that believe it, but at the beginning, like, a lot of people believed Ashley. Scofield said that she had to install home security systems and cameras and deal with harassment and threats as a direct result from Ashley's accusations. By this time, Ashley was living in Houston, Texas, so now you had a professor in Idaho suing as TikTok psychic in Texas over viral videos that reached millions of people. And eventually Ashley plays on the whole, we're in 2 different states, and was trying to get the whole thing thrown out of court too.
I need to stop asking me about this lawsuit. It should not even have been allowed. First of all, for multiple reasons, but for the legal reason was because it's the improper venue. I'm not an Idaho resident, so I should not be sued. Then they got the nerve to not allow pro se clients to e-file. Meanwhile, so her attorneys are e-filing documents. If I want to file a document, I got to fly to Idaho or mail it in and hope they get it. So I will file this motion to dismiss or whatever it is that I need to file, but I shouldn't have to do it. It should have automatically been rejected for improper venue. It's not fair, and it's not cool.
December 30th of that year, 2022 as well, Kohberger was arrested, therefore resolving the case of like who did it. For most people, that would be the moment to step back and reassess and say, oh, oops, I guessed the wrong person, or the cards told me the wrong, like whatever. You pivot, you make an excuse like all other psychics do. But Ashley did not. She still, even to this day, is insistent that Rebecca did it.
I think that's how y'all want me to feel about a measly ass $75,000 lawsuit that I'm gonna win. Oh my God. Rebecca is suing me. I've been against people, big and small, corporations and giants, and systemic policies and racism, and won. They all regret coming against me. All of them. Now Rebecca is going to be added to that list of regretful people. I haven't been served yet, but I'm actually gleaming with excitement. I am going to immediately start planning because I cannot wait to present my ideas in court regarding Rebecca Scofield and her role in the murder of the 4 University of Idaho students.
She continued insisting it and refused to retract or correct any of her videos. Ashley's legal strategy. Once the lawsuit started moving, Ashley treated the legal process the same way she treated the case online, by doubling down.
This is for those of you talking about defamation lawsuits that don't apply to me. I have physical evidence against Rebecca Scofield that validates everything that I've said about her. Rebecca Scofield is going to prison whether you like it or not. It says that she's not in control, that you're not in control, that an official person, someone in law enforcement, will be the one giving the orders.
And then she starts getting delusional, thinking that Rebecca and Jack are coming after her. And I'm just going to play you a couple clips here just to show you that she was not backing down. She was continuing to make all these videos throughout all this, even as the lawsuit was happening.
I was getting the message that Rebecca Scofield and Jack the Cool was planning another attack on someone. And so it did seem like, I'm like, are they trying to attack me? Was the question. And I think it was a plan to hurt me because I had a dream and it was them two speaking and they were like, she was like, we're gonna have to her. But of course, I'm not worried about anything like that because stay ready, you don't have to get ready. But here's my issue. The cards depicted the person that they were going to attack as a pregnant woman. So now I'm sitting here like, do I need to take a pregnancy test? Also, the reason why Jack Decor didn't complete the new job Rebecca Scofield gave him, which is to hurt me, is because he feels like his time is limited. He knows that he's going to be arrested. Why would he spend his time doing that instead of spending time with his family and Murphy? He's literally spending time with Murphy and his family. He feels like Rebecca Scofield is wasting his time.
She missed the original deadline to respond to the complaint, and a default judgment was entered against her January 2023. That default was later set aside, giving her another chance to actually file. So essentially, what Ashley was saying in her TikToks was that she wasn't going to respond to it and didn't feel the need to respond to it because they're in 2 different states and it should have been thrown out in the first place. But you need to at least make that argument in the response. Otherwise, if you don't respond to the court, then the judge is just going to rule in favor of who showed up to court, right? So then they took pity on her or whatever. She finagled some way to get another chance so that she would actually treat it seriously. On May 16, 2023, Ashley finally filed her answer and she did 11 counterclaims and she announced she's going to represent herself. So In her filing, a few things she said. One, she insisted her statements were substantially true. Two, as well, she said that she relied on her spiritual brain, intuition, spiritual practice, and investigative skills to make those claims. And then, three, she went on to say she accused Rebecca Scofield and her attorneys of conspiring to violate her rights, defame her, and start an online riot against her. Because at this point on TikTok, now that Brian's been arrested, people were turning on Ashley, of course.
Now, people have been asking me for evidence, and I think that is the most ridiculous thing that I've heard.
As well, in the filing, she also argued that what she was doing was protected religious expression, that because her accusations came from spiritual practice, they were shielded from defamation law. That isn't how the world works, but okay.
And you have to ask this Ashley person, do you have no morals? Because I'm pretty sure spirituality and religion, in some places, a lot of places, is very moral based. You're meant to treat somebody nicely, I think, in most religions. But this person isn't doing that. And that's why I think they're using spirituality and religion, and in this case, I think Christianity, hence the references to Jesus Christ, as a crutch. They are using spirituality and psychic readings as a way to get clout.
Yeah, and this is something that I often say in all my videos about ghost hunters and psychics. They use religion as a shield. If they hide behind religion, that seems to give them some kind of protection. It does work in practice, but when someone finally gets outed, like Ashley, then people start to realize. Sadly, people don't see that all of these psychics are like this. Ashley's not a one-off. They all are doing it. Ashley just went too far. And still people are encouraging these psychics to do these things and hide behind religion, including ghost hunters do it too, hiding behind the religion thing. I think the Warrens made it popular for ghost hunters. For psychics, I think it was Sylvia Brown made it popular to hide behind religion. She was one of the big psychics that had multiple religions that she grew up with. So she kind of used those to validate her ability. The court was not persuaded about any of these arguments. As well, I do believe it was either this one or future one. She also added a bunch of YouTubers to the list. Like she was going to counterclaim and sue them all for talking about her and reporting on this news. And that was just silly. So in August 2023, the judge dismissed all of the 11 counterclaims, describing some of her allegations as, quote, arguably so outrageous as to be clearly baseless. Essentially, you're nuts. Later in 2023, Ashley was trying to say that the court had no jurisdiction over her spiritual practices, like trying to claim religious freedoms or something like that. That didn't go in her favor, though. And through all of this, Ashley even kept posting on social media. She kept posting more and more videos about true crime stuff. Even after the police publicly cleared Scofield and Kohberger had been arrested, charged, even after he's admitted his guilt and everything, she still insists that Rebecca did it. She continued telling her audience that Scofield was the real mastermind, that she, Ashley, was actually the only one being defamed.
I was being defamed across the entire freaking United States of America and the world on the news media, and they were spreading misinformation, defamatory information about me. So I wanted to file an answer. I felt that it was an opportunity for me to present my case.
The issue that I'm having now is that the courts are complicit with what Scofield has going on. So I feel like the judge has done something fraudulent. Here's the thing, either he's just trying to make friends instead of following the law, and something is off with this judge.
Well, yeah, that's because you never presented any physical evidence other than your tarot cards and your gift.
Because I'm who I am and she's who she is, people just wanted to simply believe it. One, because they're demonic. I don't want to deal with this. This is not my case. But now I have to deal with this case because I have to protect myself. And because they put me in a position where I have to protect myself, and I put myself in this position too by trying overstepping boundaries and trying to help people who did not deserve my help. None of y'all, no people in this world deserve my help, is what I'm saying. This is exactly why when I said I was chosen for this or I was sent for this and that God sent me on a mission to help with this case, I'm literally the only one who has made the connection. I'm literally the only one that can help with this right now. And I gladly take the responsibility. I don't want to deal with this. This is not my case.
A big part of Ashley's public stance has been, and I quote, "I was trying to help, so there's no malice." Like, that is how defamation law works, especially when you're talking about a matter of public concern. Under U.S. Supreme Court precedent, actual malice doesn't mean hatred or spite. It means that you know the statement is false, or you are acting with reckless disregard for the truth. Basically, you have a strong reason to doubt what you're saying, yet you do it anyway. It's not enough to say, "I didn't research it, but my heart was in the right place." When you keep making specific, serious accusations, after police statements, legal letters, and contrary evidence, you're still doing it. It starts to look a lot like reckless disregard. Tarot is not evidence. The major turning point in the civil case came on June 6, 2024. On that day, the court granted partial summary judgment in Scofield's favor on liability. To simplify it, the judge said, "We don't even need a full trial to decide if this was defamation. This is clearly defamation." The court found that Ashley's statements accused Scofield of extremely serious conduct, accusing her of hiring someone to kill and having an inappropriate relationship with a student. Of course, all the accusations were false and proven false. Yet Ashley communicated them widely to the public via hundreds of TikToks and other content, even interviews that she was doing for news publications as well. Under defamation law, that kind of accusation is defamation. It's inherently defamatory, and you don't have to prove special damages to show that this one is harmful. Most important for everyone watching this, when we're looking at this from the psychic detective angle of this, the judge directly addressed Ashley's claims about her spiritual investigation. The judge ruled there is no legal support for treating tarot or psychic intuition as objectively verifiable facts, and that they cannot create a real factual dispute about what actually happened. In other words, tarot does not equal evidence. Psychic intuition by itself is not a defense to defamation.
The Scofield v. Guillard ruling sets a federal precedent. Psychic or intuitive claims accusing real people of crimes are not protected speech under the First Amendment.
Sort of reminds us of the spectral evidence of the Salem witch trials. And then we come to punitive damages. On that same day, the judge also allowed Rebecca to add a claim for punitive damages. To get punitive damages under Idaho law, you need a bad act and a bad state of mind. The court said both appeared to be present. The bad act was the repeated public defamation. The bad state of mind was shown by Ashley continuing to publish the claims even after cease and desist letters went out. The police did a press release saying Rebecca was cleared and the perpetrator was caught and charged. The court described Ashley's conduct as potentially oppressive, fraudulent, malicious, and or outrageous. And they noted that her statements looked primarily self-serving, motivated by online attention rather than any legitimate investigation. By the mid-2024, legal status was clear. A federal court already decided as a matter of law, Ashley defamed Rebecca. What remained was not if she defamed her, but how much is she going to have to pay Rebecca now? And during this whole thing in 2024, Ashley was still back at it. She was doing readings on true crime and not learning from her mistakes. She would still do videos. Even now today, she's doing the Idaho thing, re-uploading it. It's ridiculous.
So my resignation lasted a good of, 5 hours? And I'm back. I'm back on TikTok. I was mad at TikTok for deleting my account, but hi guys.
We can see that she's been re-uploading the Idaho 4 stuff to her new TikTok. She's also talking about other cases, multi-part series on them, covering all these different cases here. Like, she just can't stay away from true crime, even though it's biting her in the butt. Oh, and then she also did a video about how P. Diddy is innocent as well. So we can see she's back on TikTok. And this here, this was March of this year. Missing student Movement right here. Multi-part series. People, mysterious deaths as well. These two people here. She's been traveling too through this whole thing, but we'll get to that. Yes, the Idaho revamps. See, she's doing all that. This was in August of 2025. Like, it wasn't that long ago she's been posting this stuff, and like she lost her lawsuit and everything. Oh, and she's going on about the white car again. So yeah, the last crime thing related that she posted is August about Kaylee. So yeah, it looks like she has stopped kind of doing cases around August. I don't have all the dates in front of me, but I know Brian Kohberger did his guilty plea and everything. Like, that was July. She was denied motions, so which I'll mention in a moment, but she wanted to do an amendment or something, and she was denied essentially. Like, the courts were like, no, you were found in the wrong. That's not changing. We're not going to give you any more dates. I think the only thing with August that makes sense is Brian and him doing a plea deal, and then all the victim statements and stuff were being read around that time. So I wonder if guilt actually caught up to her, but I don't know if it did. People like her, I don't. Yeah.
Giving her maybe 3 to 5 pills. It was just too much.
It's genuinely absolutely wild to me that this person's bank account doesn't read minus 100 million. I'm genuinely shocked that this person isn't in absolute massive amounts of debt because of multiple defamation lawsuits. I'm really shocked that Rebecca Scofield is one of the first people to be like, hey, can you not do that? Please just stop. How has there only been one case here? This is genuinely disgusting. And as you probably guessed, it doesn't end there. As I said earlier, what she said in that TikTok is of course absolutely tons of misinformation. It's wrong, and it is profiteering of an actual victim and the grieving and suffering of real families. But those cases extend to the cases of Tiffany Valiant, Tamla Horsford, Raven Jackson, so many. This entire page of Ashley Solves Mysteries, it's just Ashley completely and utterly slanders basically every single human being under the sun. So going back to my original statement from my first video on this scenario, I do think that TikTok do need to do something about this profile, because profiteering off death is a very weird thing to do, but profiteering off false murder accusations is 50 times weirder than that. It's beyond weird at this point. I genuinely do not understand how Ashley can just wake up in the morning and say, oh, I'm a good human being. Like, do you not have any shame? It's genuinely utterly embarrassing.
All right, now from 2024 to 2025, Ashley still kept fighting in the courts, but the courts kept saying no. Typical Ashley fashion, she did not quietly accept the ruling that the judge found that she was guilty. She instead escalated it. She filed motions to reconsider, motions to change judges, motions claiming newly discovered evidence from the Kohberger criminal case somehow proved her psychic story was right, which no, it didn't. I'm going to play you a clip from Madcaster. He's a lawyer, and he covered a bunch of the Ashley case and was disseminating all the legal terms and paperwork for everyone. And this is how like all the YouTubers were able to sort of understand the case fully, was because everyone was referencing Madcaster. So let's check him out here. He's going to explain why Ashley kept thinking new evidence was being found, but it was just new evidence was being released to the public. It was already found. There was a gag order essentially on the trial. And Ashley was trying to use this new evidence as proof that her predictions were coming true, where she's done mental gymnastics to even make the new evidence connect to proof of what she said. And I personally don't see the connections that she's been announcing.
And Ashley Guillard kept saying that, oh, there's more evidence coming to light. And she had questioned my saying that, no, there isn't any new evidence coming forth. What she was referring to is evidence that has been not released to the public or that has not been actually brought up in trial yet, but that does already exist and is in the custody of the prosecution and the police, so that both sides should be aware in the criminal case of what they actually have, even if it's not been made public yet. And Ashley Guillard seems to think that, because it hasn't been made public, somehow it's new evidence, but it's not.
In late 2024, she tried to get the case reassigned from the magistrate judge to a district judge. That was also denied. In February 2025, the court denied her motion to alter or amend the June 2024 summary judgment order. They again reiterated that the defamation finding stands, so they are not going to budge from it. What's left is they're still going into the damage phase where they try to work out how much money she's going to owe Rebecca. There are some different legal scholars and commentators that looked at the case, and they've pointed out that her attempts to dress psychic claims up as First Amendment protected religious expression just didn't work. It was such a reach, but she was trying. Publicly, Ashley has kept the same line in interviews everywhere, including the University of Idaho student paper. She has argued that the court hasn't proved that she made an intentional false statement. She still reiterated that she was just trying to help solve a case, which she claims means there was no ill intent. And now that Ashley is receiving backlash and negative comments and, bullying and harassment, she's now demanding that media outlets issue apologies to her rather than the other way around. But yet she's still continued posting content, attacking the court, the lawsuit, and Scofield, even after a judge ruled her original videos were defamatory and based on nothing but tarot cards. Where things stand today. As of this year, late 2025, the situation looks like this. For the Idaho 4 case, Brian Kohberger has pled guilty to 4 counts of first-degree homicide and 1 count of burglary and is serving his 4 consecutive life sentences without parole plus 10 extra years. Law enforcement has consistently cleared Rebecca Scofield and confirmed she has an alibi. In the Scofield versus Guillard case, the civil matter, federal court has already ruled that Ashley has defamed Rebecca. Judge has gone on record to say that Ashley's accusations were false, and Ashley's spiritual investigation in tarot does not count as real evidence. The court views Ashley's conduct as malicious and outrageous. There's no criminal charges against Ashley over this. For now, it remains a civil case.
What happens if wouldn't there be some order that she has to stop saying this, or could that be a situation? Or not really? I mean, if she just keeps doubling down, let's say there's a judgment against her, but she has no money, and she keeps pushing the falsehood.
Well, eventually you can get an injunction against it, and then if she defies the injunction, you can get contempt of court, and so eventually it could turn into a criminal offense.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that I'm interested in, because she seems to not be stopping, and I am curious about what a trial would look like. What evidence could she present on her side that might be beneficial?
I can't think of anything. There's nothing I've seen in the videos. I mean, as far as I know, it's from tarot cards. And you can sincerely believe your tarot cards, but you are negligent.
Yes, as you just heard, this could go criminal.
And what we're waiting on now is the damages phase. And this is where they work out how much money Ashley's going to owe. So there's a jury trial for this, which I wasn't aware that there was jury trials for the civil case. This is what I was reading, so correct me if I'm wrong. But it's scheduled for early 2026 in Boise to decide how much Ashley will owe in compensatory and punitive damages. But as of November this year, there's no verdict or anything yet. The liability question is the only thing that is decided, just we don't know the numbers yet. And Ashley, well, where's Ashley now? As you all know, she doesn't go down quietly. But Ashley has been traveling a lot and clearly spending a lot of money. She's even done some shorts and TikToks where she's showing all this money in her hands and showing it off and trolling people or whatever with it. I don't know. Making a point, whatever.
This morning I woke up beautiful again and craving attention, so I decided to make some bitches mad from scratch. I started by going out and doing something with my life.
She made a few TikToks bragging about how her rent is super high in Bangkok and Thailand because she can afford it. I won't subject you guys to actually watching this whole thing, but yeah, here's a couple screenshots. So, well, Ashley's lawyer bills pile up because she does have lawyers representing her now, and she will most certainly end up owing Rebecca a significant amount of money. Ashley has decided to tour the world instead of sticking around. She talked online about wanting to go to Bali when she was first running into legal issues with Rebecca.
Story short, I would like to go to Bali so I can get myself together and clear my mind and just enjoy life. for like a few months. The issue is my son does not want to come with me. He does not see the value that I see in it. Also, I think I want to bring a companion with me, like, so that I won't be alone. I'm literally always alone, like for the past, 8 years? I want to bring a companion to Bali with me. My son doesn't want to come, so an adult.
Ashley is just refusing to take any accountability. Meanwhile, trying to run to Bali to avoid legal consequences.
But instead, we see her pop up in France, then Thailand, then Japan. In some of her most recent shorts and TikToks from Thailand and Japan, she does have a couple where she's filmed with 2 black men who look like they're in their 20s. So I suspect one is her son, the other is a nephew. Either way, she's clearly not living like someone, lying low and worrying about a federal defamation judgment. And also clearly not caring about she's going to have to owe somebody money here. But she still appears in YouTube videos talking about being a TikTok psychic, reading comments about herself, spinning the defamation case as part of some larger spiritual battle that she is fighting. Ashley's public identity is now dominated by the defamation case and by the coverage of her as a cautionary tale about being a psychic detective and also just in general cyber sleuth overreach. You don't have to be psychic. You can even be one of those like online crime junkies who thinks that they're solving the case, and this could end up blowing up in your face. Meanwhile, she's burning through what looks like a serious amount of money. Many people watching it, though, they genuinely believe that she's positioning herself to avoid paying Rebecca. They say it can be a lot harder to serve or enforce a civil judgment against someone who isn't at a stable, permanent U.S. address and keeps hopping around overseas. She's like not even staying on this side of the world, like she's on the other side, which makes it more difficult as well. When I looked through the claim, it does not look like it's fully true. Like they'd still be able to serve her because her lawyers are there representing her. However, it's not impossible to serve. Like there would be some problems, but it's not as difficult as people are making it out to seem. The fact that she's also on military disability benefits could also leave the door open for her benefits to be garnished, but I don't know if they do that in the States or anything. I'm not sure. As well, Ashley does have lawyers who, like I said, are working on her case. So what I was finding is like the judge will just serve judgment to them and they tell Ashley this has been decided. She doesn't have to physically be there to receive the judgment. But I didn't do a huge deep dive in the legalities of it. So if you know more about it, feel free to post it below in the comments too. And like I said, she's restarted her psychic reading. She has true crime content popping in, still insists her tarot is right about the Idaho 4, that there's some bigger conspiracy at play, and that the police, prosecutors, and now a federal judge are all wrong. So on the surface, it looks like she just doesn't learn from her mistakes. Or does she?
My reputation is destroyed. The TikTok page that I built for years is gone. She's winning in court. My business is ruined. Why do y'all keep commenting? What else could you possibly want?
What do you guys think about those clips? I feel like it shows that she's in a clear state of mind. She shows that she's aware of what her actions have done. She's aware she's ruined her life and her reputation. In my opinion, I think this whole woo-woo thing that she puts on while making her TikToks is to make herself look more unhinged than she really is. I think that she is smarter and more calculated than she puts on, and this is all just a BS act for her. Before we get into motives, I do also just want to mention a lot of people throw the word defamation around a lot. This is a perfect case of real defamation. And Rebecca wasn't a public figure. She was just a professor. If anything, Ashley could be a public figure. And you're allowed to critique public figures, but you're not allowed to like make up lies and ruin their life and cause them emotional and financial damages. So when we talk about stuff like when we're debunking things, when we're talking about ghost hunters, psychics, whatever, like we're not defaming, we're just critiquing. And I think a lot of people people don't understand this about defamation and libel stuff. Whereas like this case is a perfect example. Like this is what real defamation looks like. And this is a case where you would win your defamation lawsuit against Ashley. So if you're interested, I suggest looking into it more, but this is like a really good example of a case that you would win versus people threaten defamation lawsuit for someone critiquing stuff that's based on publicly accessible information. So it's not lies or anything. So I do think it's important for us to notice when we get the correct cases of this, because I do feel like defamation gets thrown around as a word a lot. For anyone interested in the ethics of psychic detectives, this case is kind of a nightmare scenario. Real victims, real assailant, backed by forensic evidence, and a completely uninvolved professor whose life was turned upside down because some tarot-wielding psychic decided that her fanfic was the truth and blasted to millions of people. And we're going to dive more into that as we discuss the motives. Motives. Here we're going to review our notes that we made, and if I miss anything, I might add some stuff in when I'm editing, or, if I miss it all together, let me know. Okay, so let's take a look at some of our key points here. First one is telling the truth to our faces. She named her company Live in Fantasyland. So was this all money-making endeavor, no matter the cost to her morals? Many psychics do start knowingly planning to fake their readings from the beginning to make money and gain fame. There's a ton of them, mostly psychic mediums that do this. Some people will get very cheeky and they'll troll people by saying it to their faces that it's all BS and they're making stuff up. But many people don't think that they're being for real. They think it's, they're joking or they're whatever. It's like, this happens a lot. A lot of people just like tell you things to their face to see if you notice it. Okay, the next note I put as well, did she learn any social engineering skills from her time in deployment? And this one I thought might be interesting, but I think it's more of a skill than a motive. It's just something to kind of keep in mind as she's working through it. Now, the next couple in my notes I want to go more into, I'm going to read off two notes together. So there is the past trauma around SA that piled on top of her PTSD from her service in the military. Could that have led to some kind of mental break? There seems to be an aspect of loneliness within Ashley. She even talks about being alone for some time when she's talking about her son, which if I haven't already played that clip, I'll throw it in here. So was this not even really about money? Or was she maybe just seeking attention? It seems she had a lot of good, strong women in her circles at a certain time, and we can only speculate why they weren't around later and why she ended up feeling so alone. Was it possible that her injuries from military service were fairly severe, causing some sort of mental break, or possibly depression and anxiety pushed people out of her life? Because that does tend to happen. And you add the pandemic on there and people are in lockdown, it just gets even further and further pushed apart. Like I said, in the video where she's talking about going to Bali, she does explain that she's been alone at her house there or wherever she's living for the last 8 years. And this is an odd TikTok because she's complaining that her son wouldn't leave his life to come travel with her. And her son's not a little kid, like he's in his 20s, at least in his 20s, probably late 20s. And then what I ended up coming across after I started editing is that she refers to an ex, I'm assuming ex-husband, and the timeline of 8 years, it kind of matches up to with her spiritual journey stuff. So it seems like between her husband not being around and maybe her son off to college or something, maybe something kind of snapped in her and she wanted attention. In my opinion, possibly she was lonely. She just craved attention and company. The loneliness getting worse through the pandemic. In this scenario, she just wanted fame, attention. But we have a couple more notes as well to review. The move to TikTok and her branding seemed very calculated and well thought out. She seemed to be of sound mind. Ashley is a writer and thus has a good imagination. And knowing that she's quite intelligent, has a good imagination, is able to spin stuff, On top of that video where she admits that she knows she ruined her life, kind of shows someone who is of sound mind, someone who is making calculated decisions and building on the momentum of essentially ambulance chasing tactics. Even the timing on her TikToks when she started talking about certain cases, it was at the time when they were being released in the news, thus making, her TikToks possibly go viral. In my opinion, this could be all calculated plan to make a ton of money off of becoming viral. Maybe we're looking at a combination of loneliness and making real quick money. Either way, she had tons of people in her comments who validated her. That's why this spiraled so out of control. In the end, not only is this whole story a lesson for grifters who get involved in true crime, but it's a good lesson for the consumers of this content. The true crime junkies, the TikTok addicts, the people looking for answers from psychics. We all need to learn to be more discerning. Don't so quickly offer support and adoration. Ask questions of them and yourself. And not just around psychic things, just anything in general. Don't become another online vigilante or supporter of them.
These crowdsourced investigations can also ruin lives as they track down so-called suspects on their own. First, it was the young man in the hoodie seen at the food truck. Police have since cleared that man, but online sleuths soon turned their attention to a new suspect, a neighbor of the victims named Jeremy Reagan. He's a third-year law student at the University of Idaho and gave a TV interview about the comings and goings at the house. He'd given a nervous smile while talking about the crime. Some viewers took issue and made him a target. Soon he moved from target to suspect. But as amateur investigators continue to dig deep into his personal life, contacting his friends and his family, Jeremy is now so concerned that he carries a for protection. With every day that the four go unsolved, the online investigative community is sure to grow, each wanting to be the cyber sleuth that unlocks the mystery and solves the crime. But at what cost to the professional investigators and to the public?
In the end, the Scofield versus Guillard case represents a significant moment in the intersection of social media, true crime, content, and defamation law. It demonstrates both the reach and potential harm of unsubstantiated accusations and the legal remedies available to defamation victims. With the judge ruling explicitly rejecting the notion that spiritual beliefs or tarot readings do not constitute a valid defense, this further solidified that such practices cannot substitute for factual investigations as well. You could even apply this to ghost hunters who try to say their apps and spirit boxes are giving new evidence. It's the same crap. We're back in the Salem witch trials where spectral evidence is accepted, and that was banned from the courts after Salem. It's not going to get back in. Come on, guys. But it's not, like I said, it's not just psychics. It's also, this whole case has highlighted a broader concern about amateur online investigators who exploit tragic events for attention, followers, fame, money, all of it. And they do all this with little regard to the innocent people they accuse or the harm they cause to victims, their families, friends, survivors who are already traumatized by the loss and what they went through. But that is where I leave you today with this one. Tell me below, what are your thoughts on this topic? I know it can get very detailed and nuanced as well, so I think it is a good topic to explore. Also, let me know if you enjoyed this video. Again, it is different from my usual psychic deep dives. I look forward to hearing all your thoughts though about all these cases, about Ashley, psychics, etc. Also, if you want to further support the channel, if you've enjoyed the video, if you have any hype points, I'd appreciate if you could hype the video and help push it out to more people. I know I've been away from making stuff for a few weeks, so I'm trying to get back out there in the algorithm. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Before we go though, I'd like to thank all the members and patrons of this channel. Your support means the world to me, and I really appreciate you sticking with me through thick and thin of the season changes that knocked me on my butt because of the stupid fibromyalgia and migraines and all the other crap. Anyway, I just want to thank you guys for sticking around and supporting. It really does mean a lot to the channel. Alright, I will talk to you guys all in the premiere and see you in the next video. Have a good rest of your week or weekend. Bye! That cat.